Traveling through the Douqi Continent, I discovered that I was actually one of the original works. In the early stage, the scumbag from the first-grade alchemist, Liu Xi, did not survive that night because she had flirted with the female lead in an external way. How can we survive this night when the black wind is high? After Liu Xi sorted out this mess, he panicked. Keywords of the novel. Dou Po. My days as a mentor at Canaan College. No pop-ups. Dou Po. My days as a mentor at Canaan College. Complete collection. Download TXT. Dou Po. My days as a mentor at Canaan College. Latest chapter reading. Is Barbie Q at the beginning of chapter 1? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Is Barbie Q at the beginning of chapter 1? The golden crow sets in the west, and the jade rabbit rises in the east. After nightfall, a faint shooting star flickered across the starry sky, quietly disappearing from one end of the sky to the other. In just a few blink of an eye, its traces of existence were completely gone. Douqi Continent is a remote corner in the northwest, within the territory of the Gama Empire. Yutun City, within the Gallery family. Liu Xi stood on a long and secluded corridor outside the reception hall, gazing into his living room in the backyard. He had been hesitating for a long time, but was hesitant to go in that direction. Because he is very clear about what he will face once he passes by and enters the room. In the original work, it is clearly written that tonight, with the dark moon and high winds, it is a good time to kill, and it is also the day when his, Liu Xi, died. However, the original owner of this body died on his own, a scumbag who could only think with his lower body. The trouble he caused, why should I bear the ultimate result? It's really spicy. Liu Xi's heart was filled with a wave of depression that could not be calmed for a long time. After the plane crash, he traveled to this once youthful land of fighting spirit that he had been longing for while reading novels. To be honest, after realizing that this was the land of fighting spirit, his heart was actually half happy and half worried. Even for a moment, the ecstasy in his heart briefly surpassed the worry. After all, as one of the victims of the air crash, he is well aware of the slim possibility of his survival in the crash. In this situation, what is there to complain about being able to travel to a different world where one is familiar with the plot and continue life in this unique way? After experiencing an air disaster, he truly understood that there is such a mysterious and terrifying thing between life and death. At that time, on a plane that was violently bumping and continuously falling down with thick smoke, facing the approaching death step by step, Liu Xi had to admit that he had almost collapsed and lost control. When death has a process that one can feel firsthand, it is not just a matter of biting one's teeth. Once upon a time, Liu Xi also saw in novels or films and television works many unbearable expressions of villains or supporting role, or passers-by in Long Tao after being cornered, and often laughed at them. But when he was in such an environment, he knew that he might not even be as good as the petty villains and passers-by he once despised. Life is in this world, we cannot talk about life and death lightly. The saying goes, it's better to live than to die. Liu Xi really understands now. Living, greedily breathing in the air of the mortal world, really. Very fragrant, however. Coming into this world, Liu Xi didn't have time to brew a mixture of emotions in his heart. Then, he nervously began a new life, only to find that the object of his soul's lodging was actually the Liu Xi in the original work, who flirted with Xiao Suner and Xiao Yu during the day in the market, insulting Xiao Yan with words. Breaking through this classic online literature, he had flipped it over and over several times before, but knew that the Liu Xi had harassed and humiliated people during the day, and that the husband and wife would not seek revenge overnight. That night, he came to his door and killed him. My name is also Liu Xi, but why did you have to wear me on this scumbag, Liu Xi? Did you cross me into this world just to make me die again? Oh my God! You are so cruel. Emotions churned in her heart, and Liu Xi slowly lifted her head, facing upwards, staring at the vast and boundless starry sky above her head. To her surprise, for the first time, she was subjected to the arrangement of fate, or more appropriately, teasing, which gave rise to such a great resentment. However, no matter how strong the resentment in his heart was, Liu Xi still dared not face the night sky at this moment, shouting and cursing loudly, because if there was too much noise, Xiao Suner and Xiao Yan, who were waiting inside and outside his room at the moment, might give up waiting for the rabbit and come straight to follow the sound, and then kill him. There is no other way. People who have experienced life and death cherish the opportunity to live more than ordinary people, and are even more hesitant about death. As time passed, Liu Xi stood in the shadow of a thick pillar in the corridor, his mood becoming increasingly flustered and chaotic. How should we solve this dead end tonight? After a long pause, Liu Xi silently turned around and leaned his back against the corridor pillar. Not long after becoming the owner of this body, he began to think about how to break through and survive under the hands of Xiao Suner and Xiao Yan. However, after racking his brains for so long, he didn't come up with any meaningful way to break through the situation. In fact, he had thought that after familiarizing himself with this body and the power of the six-star fighter contained within it, he would quickly escape from this place of right and wrong without saying a word. However, when he considered the strength that Xiao Suner could unleash himself, as well as the guards who might have already obeyed orders by his side, Ling Ying, who had the power of a high-level Douhuang, ruthlessly abandoned the idea of taking the best course. With just these two legs, even riding on a horse with Warcraft bloodline cannot compare to the Dou King and Dou Emperor level powerful Dou Qi Hua Ma. Ahem, Dou Qi Hua Wing is flying at high speed above the sky. I'm afraid he won't be able to withstand half a pillar of incense while riding for an hour. If I really want to do this, I will be chased by someone before I leave Yuden City. It will be fun then. Moreover, let alone Xiao Yan's hanging on the wall, there is also an old grandfather hidden in the ring. So, how else can we play this? The more Liu Xi wanted to breathe, the more depressed his chest became. Time travel, in the face of this situation, at least give a golden finger. Remember, before crossing over, wasn't there a trend online for exclusive cheats for protagonists like check.in and check.in? How did it get to him? Just gone. It is said that there will always be blessings after a major disaster. After encountering an air disaster, he came to this world. Isn't it time for luck to turn around? Now, he has serious doubts about the ancient saying. Damn it. Are we really going to have Barbie Q tonight? Bang! A punch hit the pillar in the corridor, making a muffled sound. However, this punch was not wrapped in fighting spirit, and the fighter's body was still mortal. After the punch, Liu Xi took a light breath of cool air. Before Liu Xi could finish inhaling the cool air, he saw a young man dressed in fancy clothes walking towards him in confusion at the other end of the corridor. Brother Liu Xi, are you here? Upon seeing the visitor, Liu Xi's depression slightly subsided, and then a faint smile appeared on his handsome and elegant face, saying, "Oh, it turned out to be the Galio brothers. I was so excited when I thought that in a few days, the top-notch girl named Xiao Suner would soon fall into my hands." Upon hearing this, Galio stopped not far in front of Liu Xi, and then his mouth twitched a few times imperceptibly. "I see, I'll just say that at this moment, brother Liu Xi, you should be in the backyard room." He, after seeing the Xiao family's Xiao Suner and Xiao Yu girls, and then looking at other mediocre and vulgar fans, I couldn't help but feel a bit disgusted and uninterested. I originally thought you could find a woman to vent my anger on, but when I came out of the hall, I remembered that it would only take a few days. These days, I will first accumulate ammunition and artillery fire, and then wait until the girl comes over to make it better. Before Galio could finish speaking, Liu Xi casually evaded the excuse he had come up with. When interrupted, Galio felt slightly annoyed, but he dared not reveal his true thoughts. After hearing Liu Xi's words, he felt a little suspicious again. Ammunition. Artillery. This. I wonder what brother Liu Xi is talking about. As soon as these words were spoken, Liu Xi was taken aback, but immediately realized that he had made a slip of his tongue. His words and vocabulary were too advanced in this world. He touched his right earlobe and felt that there was no need to waste more time explaining so much to Galileo, so he casually said, "Oh, it's just two relatively obscure medicinal herbs. If you're not an alchemist, it's normal if you don't understand them." Right. Brother Liu Xi is right. The knowledge and secrets mastered by alchemists are naturally not familiar to ordinary people like me. Galileo kept praising and saying so, but his gaze caught a hint of arrogance that Liu Xi had casually shown while speaking, but his heart felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. He really can't figure out why such a scumbag who often has a brain teaser can become an alchemist that the vast majority of people want to be honored with. Was the eyes of the heavens blinded by a rich dark cloud at that time? By the way, Brother Liu Xi, were you really okay when you were in the hall earlier? It seemed like something suddenly came to mind, and Galileo seemed to be probing unintentionally. Beside the pillar, Liu Xi raised her eyebrows and squinted her eyes, speaking in an unfriendly tone. "What's up? Are you really hoping that I have something to do?" No, Liu Xi misunderstood. "I'm just worried about your health. After all, if you want to defeat and annex Jiafeng City, you can't do it without the pill you provided." Galileo quickly waved his hand and explained when he saw the appearance of Liu Xi across from him. "Humph." Seeing this, Liu Xi let out a cold snort and lifted his chin, saying, "That's pretty good." After finishing speaking, he waved his hand again like driving out a fly and said, "All right. If it's okay, don't stick around here and disturb my thoughts." Upon hearing these words, Galileo felt speechless in his heart. Is this your home or my home? However, on the other hand, this brainless way of handling things is in line with his style. At this thought, Galileo's lips moved slightly, but in the end he chose to arch his hands silently, walk through the corridor, and head outside. After every communication with Liu Xi, he is really worried that he will spit out a mouthful of blood. Just 2 words. Depression. Moreover, there is nothing we can do about it. Our family now has a need for it, and we have to treat it like an ancestor to fulfill their spiritual and material needs. Standing still, recalling the scene that happened an hour ago in the Jia Lai family's reception hall, Liu Xi looked at the disappearing figure at the end of the corridor not far away and breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. It's a close call, almost revealing the truth. It's not unreasonable for the Jia Lai family to become the strong enemy of the Xiao family in Wutan City. Just these father and son are a pair of foxes of all sizes. He felt very clear in his heart. Just now, Galileo seemed to have met him by chance, but in fact, it may have been his father Galeb who deliberately arranged to test him. You can tell a few things from the back and forth conversations. There is no other reason, because what happened to him in the hall earlier was too strange and had to make the father and son think more. And his soul now occupies this body, and the soul of the original body owner has already vanished into thin air. Although he has received most of Liu Xi's memories, his way of doing things, the expressions he unconsciously reveals when saying a word, are all very different based on his own personality traits. Previously, Liu Xi had a frivolous personality and was as lecherous as fate. Sometimes, the upper brain of the sperm was even more timid, often using the lower body to think about problems. Their behavior and demeanor are all very exaggerated. Every time they see or think of a woman, a hint of lust will unconsciously appear in their eyes. As an alchemist, when talking to people, there is a hint of arrogance on their face, as if it is engraved on the surface of their cheeks. An hour ago. Don't worry, I know the current situation of the Jia Lai family, so I won't speak up again. In the brightly lit hall, Liu Xi looked at Jia Libi, the head of the Jia Lai family who was sitting in the main seat and noticeably relieved after hearing his words. However, a hint of lust appeared in his pupils and he said, I just want to ask Chief Jiaoye to help me bring over the girl named Xiao Suner. Upon hearing this, Xiao Libi, who had not yet completely fallen from a large stone on his chest, suddenly stiffened and his eyes twitched. He really didn't expect that this cowardly guy in front of him would hit the evil thoughts that had been on the minds of those sperm insects onto Xiao Suner, the young girl who had recently gained fame and was hailed as the second genius of the entire Yutun city after Xiao Yan, the genius of the Xiao family. The Xiao family has produced another genius, and as the Jia Lai family that has been in opposition to it for many years in the city of Yutun, they naturally won't take it for granted. They even attach great importance to the girl named Xiao Suner and have sent people to investigate her more than 3 times. Moreover, according to the eyeliner they planted inside and outside the Xiao family, the girl was quite mysterious, not originally a member of the Xiao family. Mr. Liu Xi, this matter is not very easy to handle. If we add the family and move the people of the Xiao family, and it is still the shining pearl of the Xiao family, I'm afraid that by then, we will not only have a direct confrontation between the family and the Xiao family in terms of economy and business, but also in terms of economy and market. At that time, we will really have to fight back. Hee. I don't care about this. If. Vomit, seeking collection and recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Goddess, give it a chance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Goddess, give it a chance. Nausea, in the hall, under the gaze of the father and son Galabai and Galileo, Liu Xi, who was sitting in a frivolous position, had not finished speaking a word, and his body showed no signs of spasms or retching all over. Seeing this scene, the father and son were clearly shocked. This. Mr. Liu Xi, you. What's wrong with you? Brother Liu Xi. Are you okay? Someone. Hurry up, someone. Pass on the doctor from your mansion. After a brief shock and confusion, the father and son reacted and quickly got up from their respective positions. They don't really care about Liu Xi's situation from the bottom of their hearts, it's just that the family is currently facing off against the Xiao family, and the local market really cannot do without Liu Xi, the alchemist. Moreover, this Liu Xi has a teacher who has been a third-grade alchemist for many years. If Liu Xi has a good or bad situation on their territory, it will be troublesome for his teacher to come knocking on them. Nausea. In the sight of the father and son, Liu Xi lay half on the table, retching for a few breaths, convulsing all over. Finally, after spitting out a mouthful of terrifying foam, his whole body seemed to have been suddenly unplugged from the electrical wire connected to his body, and his body stopped twitching. Liu Xi remained motionless, lying on the table and chairs like a zombie, which made Galileo, who had never seen such a scene before, hesitate and shiver. Upon seeing his son's performance, Galabai shook his head secretly and immediately pushed Galabai aside, blocking him. He strode forward to check the condition of Liu Xi. And at this moment, originally motionless, Liu Xi's body collapsed on the table and chairs, suddenly standing straight. This sudden moment startled even the knowledgeable Jia Libi. I saw Liu Xi's naturally drooping head slowly lift up, his face lifted up, and there was still a faint and disgusting white foam hanging on the corners of his mouth and cheeks. His expression first became dull, then gradually softened, and finally became vivid. When the father and son saw this, their hearts slowly fell. Still alive, then. It's not a big problem. Mr. Liu Xi, are you okay? Jia Libi approached and asked. However, when asked, there was no sound in the hall responding. The atmosphere in the hall is quite eerie. Half a sound passed. On the seat, Liu Xi's eyes suddenly moved, and suddenly, his body shook violently. Wokeo! A loud shout came from Liu Xi's mouth, and then his body fell straight down again. This time, there was no abnormality. In Galabai's view, Liu Xi's situation is not as eerie as before. Seeing his gradually calming breathing and heartbeat at this moment, he probably just fainted. On the corridor, Liu Xi's divergent thoughts slowly converged and his mind became slightly calm. At this moment, it's not the time to think about these things. For him, instead of pretending and covering up the difference between himself and the original Liu Xi in front of the father and son, it's better to spend more time on how to survive under the hands of Xiao Suner and Xiao Yan. After all, if Xiao Ming is gone, everything else is not important. He can still grasp the balance between the two. In fact, his thoughts diverged, and his recollection of what had happened in the hall before was not without reason, because at that time he happened to cross into this world and occupy Liu Xi's body. Do you remember the moment when I fainted? There seemed to be a faint electronic synthesis sound in my mind. However, at that time he was receiving the remaining memories from Liu Xi's soul and did not notice so much. But now, looking back, perhaps the opportunity for his survival lies in it. At the same time, in a room located in the backyard residence of the Gale family. Dressed in a large black cloak, Xiao Yan looked helplessly at the beautiful woman who had been knocked unconscious on the bed. The woman was only wrapped in a semi-transparent veil, and there was no need to deliberately look at her. The seductive snow-white spring light of the woman was completely visible to Xiao Yan. However, no matter how beautiful the spring scenery is, it will only add to the troubles. Of course, what Xiao Yan is currently angry about is his goal of coming here. Liu Xi's delayed future has caused him to wait here for such a long time in vain. At the beginning, he knocked out the woman and retreated into a hidden corner, waiting for the unconscious Liu Xi to come back here during the day, so that he could take action. Who would have thought that he had been staying here for almost an hour, but he didn't even see a shadow of Liu Xi. So he crawled out of the hidden corner and sat confidently on a chair in the room. The sole perception of the medicine elder in the left and right rings was amazing. If someone came, they would definitely find it, and there would be enough time to inform him later. Why hasn't that idiot whose brain is filled with sperm come yet? Although there is such a woman in the room who can be used for him to molest, play, and vent fire, there hasn't been any movement for so long. Perhaps something has delayed him. Teacher, to be honest, that idiot made a woman clean and wait for him for so long. Is that really good? Xiao Yan lay on the chair, his loose black cloak enveloping his figure from top to bottom. His fingers gently caressed the Na ring where the medicine elder was hiding. Bored and waiting, he couldn't help but start talking nonsense. Hee. Little one, in my opinion, are you, No. There's a situation. Amidst the precepts, Yao Lao smiled lightly and before he could finish a sentence, he changed his tone and quickly shouted at Xiao Yan. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan dared not neglect it at all and quickly retreated to the original hidden corner. And in the next breath. Under the reminder of the old doctor again, Xiao Yan slowly twisted his head a little, then turned his gaze to the left pane of the room. At this point, the window pane had already opened wide. The bright moonlight outside the window fluttered and fell on the edge of the window pane. The next moment, a young girl dressed in a noble golden dress appeared at the window, and she was sitting on the edge of the window. This scene fell in Xiao Yan's eyes, and he couldn't help but marvel at the speed of the girl's movements, which was far beyond his reach. However, before he could finish his emotions, his gaze suddenly became frozen. Immediately afterwards, my throat became astringent and bitter. A name came out of the almost moaning murmur in my heart. Sonaire. It took a few breaths of effort for Xiao Yan to digest the huge shock of seeing the young girl here, but he frowned again in an instant and communicated with the old doctor in his heart. What is this girl doing here? And when did her strength reach such a powerful level? Little one, there are so many unexpected things. The Douqi Continent is very big, and this little girl's true identity is quite mysterious. I shouldn't tell you too much now, but what I can tell you is that her current strength is actually using a secret technique. As for the rest, you will gradually know in the future. Yao Lao smiled faintly. As the words fell, Xiao Yan remained slightly silent. After hearing the words of the old medicine practitioner, he inexplicably felt a sense of melancholy in his heart. However, after a while, he adjusted his mentality and immediately let out a bitter smile, silently observing the movements outside the shadow corner. In the line of sight, Xiao Suner at the window pane also waited for a long time, somewhat bored, just like he had previously waited for a rabbit. I saw him sitting at the edge of the window, with a pair of snowy and round calves under his golden dress, forming seductive curves in mid-air. And that's it. Both of them, bright and dark, were waiting for the arrival of the guy who didn't have long eyes during the day. Time is passing by bit while waiting. Add the other end of the family. Above the corridor. The initiator of this situation, Liu Xi, is still undecided on how to deal with such a deadly situation. He certainly knew that dragging on like this was not appropriate. The longer it lasted, the more unfavorable it would be for him. Having worn away the few patience of those two, it is estimated that when we kill him, we won't even have the opportunity to hear his last words. Damn it. It's been so long, and the golden finger hasn't appeared yet. It seems like it's really gone, or maybe the golden finger got lost. Liu Xi reached out and touched the back of her neck, which had become damp due to being too nervous. Finally, she sighed and said, "Sigh. It seems like I'll have to face it alone in the end." Slowly turning around, facing towards the backyard of the Jia Lai family at the left end of the corridor, Liu Xi finally took his steps towards death. On the long and quiet corridor, he walked alone at night. His figure was illuminated by lamps hanging above the eaves of the corridor, constantly elongating, and elongating suddenly. A gust of night breeze blew in. The wind caused the slender hem of the willow mat to sway slightly. The wind is howling, the water is cold, and the scum is gone forever. What chow? How can you call yourself scumbag? That was the guy before, now I'm. By the way, what is he? The sound slowly emanated from the corridor and eventually dissipated into the world. What is he? Is it humor before death? One step. One step. Another step. I don't know why, but as Liu Xi walked, the closer he got to the place of death, the more blank his brain became. On second thought, he laughed himself. I still want to improvise when I get there. At that time, whether it's to die generously or to kneel down and beg for mercy with dignity, we'll talk about what happens then. But see how far we've only gone now. My brain won't be able to handle it anymore. Do you still expect to behave well then? I'm afraid he might want to speak and not even spit out his teeth clearly by then, right? What a shame. During the plane crash, although I almost lost control of my bladder and urine, it was also almost impossible, wasn't it? Didn't it happen yet? At least they have experienced life and death once. Once they were born, they became familiar twice. It doesn't make sense, but this time they were scared to pee, right? On the way. Liu Xi kept giving herself courage and persevering in her footsteps of moving forward without stopping. Actually, don't look at him walking so hard, it's because he knows what he's about to face, and sometimes ignorance really is very happy. Unconsciously. The night is getting darker and darker. The originally 15-hour journey, Liu Xi walked for half an hour. This may seem exaggerated to others, but Liu Xi really wished this journey could be extended tenfold, hundredfold. Thousands of times. 10,000 times. If possible, please make this road endless. People are here. In the room, Xiao Yan's mind rang with the sound of Yao Lao's reminder. Finally. Have you arrived? In his heart, Xiao Yan let out a long sigh. He had spent nearly 2 hours here to kill that guy. What is the concept of 2 hours? That's 4 hours. Half of the evening has passed. After this incident, I'm afraid I won't be able to complete my cultivation tonight. It's really speechless. My time is already tight, my 3-year promise. Sigh. A cold light flashed through Xiao Yan's pitch-black eyes. For the guy who didn't have long eyes during the day, teased his crush, and caused him to waste his time practicing at night, he naturally didn't plan to let go so easily. However, the current situation is that he is not the only one holding the idea of crushing that guy in the dark. The girl in the window pane is on the surface. Judging from the situation, I'm afraid it won't be his turn to seize the opportunity of the willow mat in the hand blade. With a click, the door to the room opened in response, and Liu Xi walked in with a numb and helpless expression on her face. To be honest, among the 4 people in the current room, perhaps only he, Liu Xi, walked in normally through the door, right? Poor Liu Xi, the scumbag in the eyes of the world and the idiot in the mind of a worm, but he is the most harmless person in the room tonight. Inside the house. After Liu Xi walked in, he did not emit the signature lewd laughter from the original work, nor did he even glance at the beautiful maid lying on the bed with spring light shining. Just kidding. Leaving the goddess Xiao Suner by the window aside, go and see those mediocre and vulgar fans. Did Liu Xi's head get kicked by a donkey? At the entrance, a noble girl in a golden dress sat at the edge of the window pane, bathed in the sparkling moonlight. Except for Xiao Yan, the vast majority of people maintain a delicate and indifferent face, with 3,000 green threads hanging down to their buttocks, a slender waist held tightly, and snowy and seductive calves exposed naked under a golden dress, forming a well-proportioned body that has already begun to develop. The night breeze outside the window blew, bringing a faint fragrance from the girl's body. Just a glance. In Liu Xi's eyes, a hint of intoxication naturally appeared in the man's eyes when he saw a top-notch beauty. To be honest, Xiao Suner truly deserves to be worshipped as a goddess by countless young people in later generations. A goddess. Because they are already goddesses, okay. Still the kind of true goddess who only exists in an illusory world, never touched or obtained. Goddesses, those who cannot be obtained are goddesses. However, for Liu Xi, when the goddess appeared in front of him one day, he really felt suffocated. It's the suffocating beauty of the other person. Really, Liu Xi didn't even think that Xiao Suner needed to take action. He might have died from suffocation due to lack of oxygen. In the original memory of Liu Xi, he had already seen this girl, but that memory existed in the illusion of his mind. Although it was stunning, it was not enough to make Liu Xi like this. This is the impact of reality. At this moment, Liu Xi, who was deeply moved by the beauty of the young girl, inexplicably blurted out. "Goddess, give it a chance. Seeking collection and recommended tickets." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Good Teacher. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Good Teacher. Inside the house. When Xiao Suner appeared in Liu Xi's field of vision, in contrast, Liu Xi's figure also appeared in the other person's line of sight. "Goddess, give me a chance to lick you. Is that okay?" This statement came out. The atmosphere inside the room suddenly changed. And Liu Xi, who spoke these words, also had a change in expression at the moment of speaking out. "Wokeo. That's it, I said the wrong thing. What's going on here? Could it be that there are still some remaining souls of the original willow mat inside his body, influencing him?" As expected, in Liu Xi's gaze, a look of disgust appeared on the girl's indifferent and delicate cheeks. In a hidden corner, upon hearing the sound, Xiao Yan's eyes twitched and he was speechless. At the same time, he let out a cold snort in his heart. He is indeed a fool who only knows how to think with his lower body. On the side, Liu Xi saw the girl's expression and naturally realized that the situation was greatly bad. It was obvious that the girl misunderstood her meaning. The licking he said was not a foot licking, and he didn't have that strong taste. That's licking the dog, okay. However, it is obvious that there is no such advanced vocabulary in the current world. Of course, even the licking of dogs is just talk. When on Earth, he despises creatures like licking dogs and harbors a deep hatred in his heart. But, on the other hand, if the girl in front of him really gave him a chance, he wouldn't not be a licking dog above the windowsill. The girl, after a brief moment of nausea, slowly straightened her slender fingers. In the blink of an eye, a golden flame stabbed at her fingertips and slowly condensed into shape, visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Liu Xi's pupils shrank, and with the words he had just uttered, for some reason, he no longer had the same nervousness and fear of death on his way here. His head was no longer blank, and his limbs were no longer stiff. It seems that at any time, it is difficult to articulate the ups and downs of life. Leveraging the strength of the 6-star Dou fighter within his body, his fighting spirit surged from his feet, and his soles were slightly heavier on the ground. Liu Xi's body was like a detached arrow, quickly dodging to the side. He didn't want to immediately explain something, but seeing the girl's posture, he obviously wouldn't stop his movements and chose to listen to his nonsense. Since that's the case, it's better to deal with the girl's opening move first and then talk about other things. However, as soon as she dodged, Liu Xi remembered the original content she had read before. It seems that the Liu Xi in the original work also dodged like him, but in the end, the fact proved that it was just useless work. As if to confirm what he had in mind, the girl bent her finger and flicked it. The golden flame at her fingertips was piercing in the blink of an eye, and within a breath, 2 blood holes the size of a baby's fist appeared on his legs. Wokao! Liu Xi let out a scream and fell to the ground. The edges of the blood hole on his legs were burnt black, with a faint smell of burnt flesh after being grilled. "Miss, if you have something to say, let's not get busy with it yet, okay?" The sharp pain in his leg almost made Liu Xi dizzy, but he gritted his teeth and carried it down with all his might, pleading for mercy. The fact cannot tolerate him to be inferior to this. After all, who knows if the girl's fingers will pierce through his chest in the next moment. Glancing indifferently at the willow mat lying on the ground with her legs pierced through, Xiao Suner gracefully jumped off the windowsill, took a gentle step, and slowly walked towards him. The girl's lotus steps were very light, and as she stepped on the spacious room covered in red carpet, she couldn't make any sound. However, it was this kind of lotus step that, with each step taken, seemed to fall heavily on the heart of Liu Xi's nest. A few breaths passed. Xiao Suner walked up to Liu Xi, wearing a noble golden dress. She stood tall and looked down at Liu Xi, but this angle added a touch of charm to Liu Xi's eyes. However, at the moment, Liu Xi naturally didn't have the time to pay attention to these details, tried to endure the pain, and stopped the constant wailing in his mouth. He looked up, but happened to see Xiao Suner pause in her footsteps, lower her head, and suddenly give him a gentle smile. In an instant, the smile seemed as if the world had lost its color for it, and it made Liu Xi's heart skip a beat. A slight throb spread from his heart to his limbs. "Don't you want someone to catch me? You begged for mercy at the beginning, isn't your courage just stopping here?" Slowly squatting down, looking down at Liu Xi, Xiao Suner's crisp voice filled with a chilly chill that lowered the temperature of the entire room. On the ground, Liu Xi struggled to swallow a mouthful of saliva, and his handsome face was covered in cold sweat, indirectly washing it. "Actually, I really dislike killing people by hand." Xiao Suner sighed lightly as she looked at Liu Xi, who had a strong expression of fear in her gaze. Upon hearing this, a glimmer of hope flashed through Liu Xi's eyes like in the original work. However, before he could speak out again and beg for mercy, he used interesting words from the water blue star to reduce Xiao Suner's killing intent on him. He saw his suddenly cold and pretty face, which plunged him into the abyss of despair. "I don't actually mind some meaningless looks, but why do you insult him? What qualifications do you have to insult him? Although he may not care, I can't. I really can't." As Xiao Suner's tone suddenly turned cold, before Liu Xi could react, the golden flame spikes on her slender fingers suddenly released and turned into a golden lightning bolt, piercing fiercely into Liu Xi's chest. Suddenly, a blood hole quickly appeared. Caught off guard by a fatal blow, Liu Xi's pupils suddenly shrank, his pale face slowly darkened, and his slightly protruding eyes looked extremely eerie. With an indifferent glance at the body that was gradually losing its vitality, Xiao Suner stood up straight and sighed lightly. A hint of helplessness appeared on her indifferent little face, and she murmured in a low voice, "If it weren't for the fear that brother Xiao Yan might blame me for something, this Wutan city would have long been without the Jia Lai family. How could there have been so many troubles?" After this incident, Xiao Suner's eyes scanned the room for a moment. Finally, a faint golden fighting spirit enveloped her body, and she leaped out of the room through the window pane before disappearing into the darkness outside. At this point, in a hidden corner of the room, Xiao Yan's figure slowly emerged from the dark shadow, lifted the thin curtain blocking the front, and shook his head with a bitter smile in his heart, saying, "This girl is so quick and decisive in her actions. It seems that we came here for nothing tonight. We didn't accomplish anything and wasted a lot of cultivation time that night." "Oh. Do you really think so? Hee hee. You young people, your thinking is still too simple and one-sided, easily blinded by the appearances of things." In Xiao Yan's mind, the voice of Yao Lao rang out. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan touched the tip of his nose and asked, "Teacher, what do you mean by that? Either you guess it yourself and I'll tell you if you get it right, or just be patient and keep waiting," said the old medicine seller. Seeing this, Xiao Yan felt speechless for a moment. Speaking of which, he has been speechless several times today. When will he be the boss? However, out of trust in Yao Lao, Xiao Yan had no choice but to retreat back into the shadow corner where he had been hiding for almost a night. In the quiet room, Xiao Yan, huddled in the corner, could clearly hear the breathing of the maid who had been knocked unconscious by him for a long time on the bed. "I stayed in the corner for about 15 minutes again." Xiao Yan occasionally glanced at Liu Xi's corpse and froze slightly. At one end of the bed near the door, Liu Xi, who had already lost his vitality, made a slight invisible movement in his palm. In the next moment, his slightly protruding eyes, which seemed to be dying without closing their eyes, slowly closed and then slowly opened, gradually fading away the previously lifeless gray color on his face. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan in the corner was already stunned. In the years he grew up in the Xiao family, he still tended to be more comfortable, which made him never see such a scene. TSK. The outside world is indeed complex. Teacher, I have really gained insights and learned this time. I didn't expect a scumbag who appears to be a brainless idiot on the surface, and there is such a complicated side. Xiao Yan sighed inwardly. On the ground, Liu Xi struggled to sit up. Due to the severe pain in her chest and legs, Liu Xi's movements were slow, and she only took out 2 small jade bottles from her ring after a while. First, pour out a light blue spiritual machine from one of the small jade bottles and take a small, thumb-sized pill. After half of the dead energy on her face has dissipated, Liu Xi starts to free up some white powder from the other jade bottle and apply it to the wound. Wait until all of this is done. Liu Xizai dragged his severely injured body and leaned his back against the wooden legs that supported the bed nearby. During this process, Liu Xi remained silent and calm, seemingly possessing an inexplicable confidence that was completely different from his previous performance, indescribable and unclear. Ding! Congratulations to the host for leading by example, successfully teaching one person and completing the task. Successfully opened the Good Teacher system. Ding! This system will provide the host with a system activation gift package. Ding! I hope the host can continue to work hard. Teachers are the ones who impart knowledge and solve problems. This is the purpose of this system. Ding! Reminder to the host. Considering that the target of the host's teaching is the Son of Qi in this world, in addition to the task reward, an additional year of lifespan will be added. Ding! The remaining lifespan of the host is 1 year, 1 month, and 9 hours. Ding! This system opens the main task. For each practitioner who preaches, receives knowledge, and dispels doubts, corresponding longevity will be extended by 1 day. Ding. Note. If the target of preaching, receiving knowledge, and resolving doubts is a dosha, the corresponding lifespan will be extended by 5 times that of the teaching dosha, and so on. For each subsequent level, the corresponding lifespan will be extended by 5 times that of the previous level. Ding. Note. If the target of preaching, receiving karma, or dispelling doubts is a person who carries the energy of this world, the reward will be calculated separately. Ding, ding. All main and branch tasks released by this system, as well as corresponding task rewards, have the final interpretation right of this system. The host has no right to interfere. Finally. Have you completed the task of opening the golden finger? As the series of electronic synthesized sounds in his mind subsided, Liu Xi murmured to himself as if from another world. It's not that he, as a familiar traverser of the original work, has yet to escape the fate of being killed by the goddess and appear useless, but rather that on the way here, when the electronic synthesis sound in his mind echoes again after passing through and becoming unconscious, he issues a system activation task. In order to complete the task, he has to do so. It is worth mentioning that he learned from the system prompt that his original lifespan had already ended when he encountered an air disaster. After coming to this world, every extra minute and second he lived naturally earned. But at that time, he was given too little time, and only then did he realize on the way that he was still alive because the system had provided him with an initial lifespan of 1 day. When he found out, it was less than 10 hours before the system had exhausted the initial lifespan of 1 day, and the lifespan had already entered the countdown. Leaving aside this point, where should he go to find someone to preach, receive education, and dispel doubts in the middle of the night to complete the task? Find a night guard from the Gala family. And then startle the father and son of Galabai. Or do you randomly find someone in the gallery family to wake them up from their bed and pull them up? Not to mention whether he will be beaten to death by someone who may have the energy to wake up, but rather not. They will listen carefully to him preach, receive education, and dispel doubts in sudden situations. Impossible. Another thing is that there are still 2 little ancestors waiting in the backyard. If they are asked to wait for too long and come directly, the consequences will be taking into account various situations. Liu Xi combined the already familiar original work and finally decided to act in this way. Of course, his timidity and fear of death during the process were also true. The guy in the original work also did not die in the hands of Xiao Suner. Instead, he escaped from Xiao Suner's hands with the help of a turtle breath pill stolen from his master, and finally died under the strange fire of Xiao Yan's master and disciple who were repairing the sword. With that turtle breath pill, Liu Xi had great confidence in taking risks. Fortunately, taking such a big risk did not disappoint me, and I finally succeeded. Liu Xi's mouth curved. In fact, his pitiful remaining lifespan, which was almost 0, also forced him to take this risk. Both sides were on the brink of death, so it was better to gamble on everything and take a chance to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. In this way, it's not surprising that he is no longer obsessed with fear of death, but instead has acted in such a wonderful scene. It's really a last resort. Completing tasks is also for the sake of survival. Pop 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 pop. Your Excellency is really a good tool. Thank you for giving me such a vivid lesson. In the corner, Xiao Yan, dressed in a wide black cloak, slowly stepped out, lightly tapping his hands under his sleeve and robe together. Hee. It's really difficult for you to come out only now. Cough. Cough. Liu Xi chuckled lightly when he saw the visitor, his tone surprisingly appearing extremely relaxed. As she spoke, she chuckled twice and the wound on her chest was moved. The intense pain surged back like a tide. Liu Xi suppressed the pain and coughed, saying, "So, you must be coming out at this moment to take care of the previous girl's affairs, right? Repairing the knife. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's slow footsteps paused slightly, and his heart couldn't help feeling suspicious of Liu Xi's posture. Therefore, he stood still and said, "You don't seem surprised at all that there's someone hiding in your room who wants to kill you. And since you know that I came out at this moment to make up for you and turn you from a fake death to a real death. Surprisingly, you don't even have a little fear, a fear of death. Did you pretend to beg for mercy and howl at that girl before? Seeking collection and recommended tickets." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Emperor Yan, do you remember the blue star? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Emperor Yan, do you remember the blue star? Of course that's true. Liu Xi looked calmly at Xiao Yan, who had stopped in front of him, and said with a faint smile. Xiao Yan frowned. "I said, just now I was beaten to the ground by that girl and begged for mercy." Of course, it was true to let out a mournful cry. After speaking, Liu Xi withdrew his gaze from Xiao Yan's body and lowered his head to spot several wounds on his body. He then said, "Here, do you see? The flesh and blood body has been burned so badly, and who wouldn't scream twice?" Under the cloak, Xiao Yan's pitch-black, ink-like gaze paused slightly at the point where he pointed, and he fell silent for a moment. Surprised by the light clouds and breeze at this moment, he said after half a sound. "I'm surprised, your current behavior is completely different from your foolish behavior in the streets of the neighborhood during the day, which is completely different." Upon hearing this, Liu Xi chuckled and said, "Don't bother brother Xiao Yan to remind me, of course I know what you said." The words fell. The two gazed at each other without speaking again. In the gaze, Liu Xi's gaze was certainly not enough to penetrate the darkness hidden under Xiao Yan's cloak. Seeing Xiao Yan's expression, he could be certain of one thing. Xiao Yan's psychological activity at this moment must be extremely exciting. I can't say for sure, the consciousness in his mind is still communicating with the old guy inside the ring. Even if the other two are currently commenting on him. Xiao Qing. Xiao Yan took the lead in breaking the silence inside the house. "Tonight, I must admit one thing. So far, I have retracted some of my previous views on you. Besides not being able to control your lower body, you, Liu Xi, can barely be considered a person. However, this cannot avoid the outcome of you dying in my hands tonight." Before he could finish speaking, under the black robe, Xiao Yan's palm floated out lightly, and a strange white flame slowly rose from his palm, swaying and jumping. "Seems to be boiling over the desire to harvest another life. He. Is this the bone spirit cold fire? It is indeed eerie and powerful." Liu Xi looked at the flame in Xiao Yan's palm and sighed sincerely. This is his heartfelt feeling as an alchemist, after receiving the memories of his former body owner, towards this treasure in the world. You have some insight. Alright, it's not too early either. Tonight, I spent a lot of time trying to kill you. Being able to die under the strange fire doesn't insult your identity as an alchemist. At this point in the matter, even if Xiao Yan had more confusion and doubts about the life in front of him at this moment, he would not choose to waste it any longer. Late leads to change. Let the willow mat make a living. That's impossible. He hasn't taken action against this Liu Xi yet, but the girl who hurt her before was quite serious. Letting go of the tiger and returning to the mountain will bring endless troubles. Moreover, tonight's incident was originally caused by her desire for Sun'er's beauty, and no one can blame her. Determined to stop dragging around, Xiao Yan was about to release the forest white flame in his palm when he saw Liu Xi not only remain calm when he started, but also calmly smile and say a sentence that made him feel like he was struck by lightning. "Brother Xiao Yan, do you still remember Mercury? Do you still remember Mercury? Wait. Blue water star." At this moment, Xiao Yan seriously doubts whether he has hallucinated. A faint buzzing noise appeared in my mind, and even the sound of inquiry from the old doctor was automatically ignored. The heart was operating uncontrollably, and blood from all four limbs surged towards my head. At this moment, all his concerns and doubts were forgotten by him. What did he hear? He heard the water blue star. Water blue star. You. Are you too? Xiao Yan tried hard to keep his voice from trembling. Unconsciously, his throat, eyes, and depths were drying up to death. With a stroke of his hand on his head, he drew the cloak that covered his appearance and figure closer to his ring, as if thinking of something. He silently recited in his mind. Teacher, please take back your soul perception power for a while. In his mind, Yao Lao remained silent for a moment before finally reminding him. Little one, I don't know why your emotions fluctuate so much, but the guy in front of me is currently stronger than you. Although he has been injured, there is still some room for defense. After I regain my soul power, if there is danger, I may not be able to take action in a timely manner. You need to consider this carefully. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan fell silent. On the ground, Liu Xi leaned the back of his head against a wooden leg on the bed. He caught a glimpse of Xiao Yan's expression changing, and he didn't even know what the old medicine in Najia had said to Xiao Yan. He is not in a hurry, because no one knows the importance of this secret to him and the meaning behind it better than him. Water blue star, the greatest secret of Emperor Yan Xiao Yan. No one. Throughout the entire plot of Dou Po, apart from mentioning the azure planet at the beginning, there is no further description of it afterwards. Even if it's the last 5 emperors breaking through the void. Even if it reaches the vast world, establishes an endless realm of fire, breaks through to the heavenly supreme, and even leaves a name on the heavenly list, becoming one of the rulers of the vast world. Xiao Yan never mentioned a word to his closest person. Wife. Children. Teachers. Father and brothers. What does this mean? It indicates that Xiao Yan regards his identity as a traveler as extremely important. Speaking of which, if Xiao Yan were not a traveler, he would naturally have such excellent soul perception. Can we still achieve all the achievements in the future? Even with the help of an old doctor. And this secret, Liu Xi eats it for a lifetime. Cough cough, just a joke. If he were so ignorant, perhaps Xiao Yan would kill him once and for all in this foreign world, regardless of the risk of never leaking the secret. When the fellow villager saw him with tears in his eyes, he would kill him. After all, he knew that among the many protagonists in Tudo's works, Xiao Yan was the second most evil and irritable protagonist. As for the other one, cough cough. A certain swordsman, brother Xiao Yan, you don't have to worry so much. I know you have a senior with extremely powerful soul power. If you can't trust me for a while, you can let that senior use his soul perception power to check my bottom line, see if I have any backers, or if I have any murderous intentions towards you. Believe this, that senior can do it effortlessly. Can he? Liu Xi saw Xiao Yan hesitating in front of him, so he simply smiled and said. However, as soon as Liu Xi spoke these words, the content undoubtedly stirred up a huge wave in Xiao Yan's heart once again. The existence of Yao Lao is undoubtedly the most important secret for him at this stage, apart from being a traveler's secret, and the guy in front of him named Liu Xi actually knows everything. Glancing at the shock that couldn't be concealed in Xiao Yan's pitch-black eyes, Liu Xi let out a helpless bitter smile in her heart. He knew it. He shouldn't have been too eager to bring tonight's matter to a close, and acted too hastily. He had some secrets that he knew in his heart. If he said this, he was afraid that the situation would go to 2 unknown extremes that were still unknown. Either the 2 are open and honest, or he probably has to say goodbye to this world. He. You have a comprehensive idea of the problem, but I'm not interested in the possible secrets of your young people. Come on, let go of your spiritual guard, and I'll know if you have any killing intent. Compared to the ups and downs deep within Xiao Yan's heart at this moment, as an old senior and experienced person, it is obvious that Yao Lao has witnessed all kinds of storms. Although he was also somewhat surprised that Liu Xi could detect his existence, He only believed that there might be some special methods or clues revealed from Xiao Yan's use of his power. However, if the other party knew his identity, Yao Lao did not quite believe it. After all, his identity has not even been revealed to Xiao Yan now. Who doesn't have any secrets these days? He has. Xiao Yan has it. This willow mat is also available. Upon hearing Yao Lao's voice speak with the help of Xiao Yanji, the atmosphere did not worsen, and Liu Xi breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Just now was too dangerous. Breaking through the existence of Yao Lao, even if Xiao Yan doesn't want to kill him, if Yao Lao insists on killing him due to his own confidentiality considerations, he may not be able to stop Xiao Yan's weight in Yao Lao's heart now. Fortunately, he left a trace and only revealed that there may be senior and powerful figures on Xiao Yan's body, but did not reveal the identity of Yao Lao. Slowly converging his mind, he followed the words of Yao Lao and slowly let go of his spiritual guard to show that his human and animal lives were harmless. He had read the original work and knew about Yao Lao's character. Although he was not a gentleman, the possibility of taking action against him in such a situation was almost zero. Moreover, if Yao Lao really wants to kill him, would it take so much effort based on his strength? Is it too much pain to be idle? I'm afraid his resistance will be futile. The next moment. Just as Liu Xi relaxed, his innate soul perception as an alchemist, which was different from that of ordinary people, felt an invisible force brushing him from head to toe, sweeping him over. And then. There was no more. Is that all? Senior. Liu Xi raised his eyes and eyebrows slightly, his gaze fixed on Xiao Yan. He knew that it was Yao Lao who was controlling Xiao Yan's body at the moment, although Yao Lao could still exert his strength without relying on Xiao Yan's body. With your meager fighting skills, do you still need a very complex process? Yao Lao chuckled lightly. That's great. I just like to talk like a senior. Since that's the case, senior, what should I say? Liu Xi said solemnly. Yao Lao glanced at him and inexplicably smiled, then said. You two young people, let's talk. Stop speaking. There are only Liu Xi and Xiao Yan left in this room. Yao Lao has already regained his soul power and closed his external perception. Unless Xiao Yan actively contacts, this room is a world of two young people with strong blood. By the way, I almost forgot that there was an unconscious maid on the bed who was only wrapped in a thin layer of shower gauze and had a burst of spring light, but had no significant presence. Inside the house. After a complex emotional change just now, the eyes of the two young people came into contact again. However, at this moment, there was no tense atmosphere of tension, and they were completely different from before. Are you also from Aqua Blue Star? Xiao Yan spoke up first and asked for words that had not been asked before. In fact, it's not that Xiao Yan couldn't hold his breath and wanted to understand the situation earlier and complete the task sooner. It really involves his secret as a time traveler and an outsider in this world. He didn't want Yao Lao to know that he had shamelessly let the elderly person self-isolate. He couldn't continue to make progress and let Yao Lao self-isolate for the rest of the night. If we do that, it would be too cruel, too heartless, and not in line with their fine tradition of respecting the elderly and loving the young in the Water Blue Star Eastern ethnic group. Therefore, to finish the task early and also to release the elderly physician from their autistic state. And Xiao Yan's mentality of quick battle and quick decision was also in sync with Liu Xi's desire to save time. After all, someone's lifespan is only in the early years. For Liu Xi now, he has truly realized what it means to be an inch of time and an inch of gold. An inch of gold cannot buy an inch of time. The ancients never deceived me. Are you also from Aqua Blue Star? Of course, Liu Xi nodded to indicate this question. At this critical moment, there is no need to hide or hide. Everyone is a traveler, and on this continent of fighting spirit, everyone is an outsider. When two people have the same secret, that secret is not considered a secret in situations where only two people are present. Who? Upon receiving confirmation from Liu Xi, Xiao Yan exhaled a deep breath of turbid air, and a series of unclear emotions slowly grew in his heart. How many years has it been? From his time traveling to this world, from a baby still in swaddling clothes, to now. It has been 16 years since I, as an outsider known only to myself, initially stood out from this world and gradually assimilated into it now. After 16 years of living in a different world, have you finally met a fellow villager who can barely speak his heart and sympathize with the same illness? To be honest, many years later, Xiao Yan became the Emperor of Yan, the ruler of the Tao, and sometimes recalled what had happened that night, often laughing and then crying. Laughing is laughing in silence. Crying is. Okay, to be honest, how could Emperor Yan cry? Speaking of which country are you from, Aqua Blue Star? Xiao Yan slowly crouched down and sat cross-legged on the ground covered with a red carpet. Is that worth mentioning? Of course it's the East. Liu Xi lifted his chin slightly. The East. There are many countries in the East, which one is it? Speak clearly. Who knows if you are a stick or a devil? Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and said. Fuck you. You're the stick. You're the devil. Your whole family is a stick. I'm a native of Shenzhou Shanghua. Liu Xi glared. How to prove it? Xiao Yan touched the tip of his nose with one hand and supported his left knee with the other, scrutinizing his expression. Ma Dan. I haven't questioned you yet. This way. After another sentence, I'll say the first half and you'll say the second half, without any pause in between. Liu Xi couldn't help but gasp. Okay, let's start. Xiao Yan let go and said seriously. Liu Xi nodded at the sight, but after letting Xiao Yan breathe a few breaths, he unexpectedly said. Under the atomic bomb. No unjust souls. Almost as soon as Liu Xi finished speaking, Xiao Yan picked up the last three words. End. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Haha. Quick. Seeking collection and recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Toxic System Opening Gift Pack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Toxic System Opening Gift Pack. Brother, are you also from Jinling? Xiao Yan asked. Liu Xi pursed his lips together and remained silent for a moment before saying, No, I'm from Sichuan. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. Then, with a thumbs up in his left hand, he said. Brother, from Sichuan, this is it. Liu Xi glanced at it and smiled bitterly, not taking on this conversation. Seeing this, Xiao Yan did not continue the topic and finally asked the question he was curious about. Speaking of brother Liu Xi, how did you tell that I am from the Aqua Blue Star? Am I so out of place with the surrounding environment? Upon hearing this, Liu Xi's heart thumped. Undercover, the two of them were dawdling and probing each other for so long, and now the big show is really here. That's not true. Liu Xi waved his hand and said. During the day, when you were in the neighborhood, you scolded me in Galileo as garbage, you guessed it. After all, there are no such novel words on this Douqi Continent. His reaction was not bad, although there were factors of advanced preparation included, but in a flash of thought, just a moment, he came up with such an excuse that could be explained. Of course, he himself prefers to call this a white lie. Hello, me too. I see. Xiao Yan suddenly realized, but then frowned and said, during the day. Brother Liu Xi, your way of doing things. Across from him, Liu Xi saw Xiao Yan's changing expression, and he didn't even know what he was thinking. What was he hesitating to say? He gave a faint smile and said. If I say during the day, I'm not me yet, do you believe me? Words fall. Sitting in front of him, Xiao Yan's dark eyes flickered slightly, and he didn't answer for a while. Regarding this, Liu Xi was quite calm because this time he was telling the truth. He became the owner of his current body for only 4 hours at most. During the day. At that time, the original owner of the body was still crazily dying. For a long time. Xiao Yan cast a deep gaze at Liu Xi and said, "I believe it." 2 words were spoken out, and before Liu Xi, who was facing him, could feel a calm and relieved expression in his heart, Xiao Yan slowly stood up, then moved his steps and came to Liu Xi's side. He slightly bent down, his head gradually hanging down, and one hand hooked onto Liu Xi's shoulder, his head pressed close. "Brother, I know you should have a secret that you don't want to reveal, but I don't force it either. After all, this is our first contact, and it's impossible to be honest with each other if we want to. But in the future, we can gradually enhance our trust. The day is long, and now in this foreign world, all I know of our fellow countrymen from Aquarius is only you, brother." After finishing his words, Xiao Yan straightened up and lightly patted Liu Xi's shoulder. He then turned around without looking back, and his feet filled with fighting spirit, jumping towards the window of the room. "By the way, brother, the Jiaoya family is not a place to stay for a long time. If you're interested, the door of our Xiao family is always open for you, brother." Finally, leaving behind this sentence, Xiao Yan leaped out of the window and his figure merged into the darkness outside. Inside the house. After Xiao Yan left, Liu Xi let out a long sigh and felt weak as if all his strength had been drained from his body. Who? Struggling to endure the excruciating pain emanating from all over his body, he took a few hard breaths, but when he regained his senses, he found that the surface of his skin under his robe had already been covered in cold sweat that had emerged at an unknown time, especially a section of his spine leaning against the wooden leg of the bed behind him. Sweat had already seeped through his back, and perhaps he could wring out half a cup of water by taking it off and twisting it. "I, Liu Xi, have finally survived." He lifted his head vigorously, facing the ceiling on the roof, and smiled self-deprecatingly. Looking back on everything that happened tonight at this moment, it was truly more exciting than his more than 20 years of experience at Aqua Blue Star, especially the witty words and battles with Xiao Yan and Yao Lao afterwards. It's not an exaggeration to describe them as ups and downs. I'm afraid if he takes a slight mistake, he will end up with no bones left in the cold fire. I just hope that this kind of excitement won't happen again, Liu Xi muttered silently to herself. However, how many people in later generations still remember that Emperor Yan Xiao Yan, who would dominate the world in the future, was actually a traveler? Once again, Liu Xi felt a little relieved for his familiarity with the original work. Tonight, it can be said without any discount that if he hadn't remembered this incident, he would definitely have died. Even if he really knelt down and begged for mercy, his posture was even more humble than the one in the original work, it wouldn't have made Xiao Yan feel any mercy in the end. But if that's the case, even if he doesn't complete the task given by the system and allows the remaining few hours of his lifespan to gradually run out, he won't foolishly walk over and die. Silently maintaining a paralyzed posture on the ground, another half an hour has passed. I really confirm that there are no other crises inside the house. Liu Xi slowly got up and then lay down on the bed, feeling the pain all over her body while relaxing and being wrapped in the beauty of softness. Of course, this kind of beauty is far from being comparable to the great happiness and joy of surviving the disaster. Enjoying the delicate touch beneath him, after a while, Liu Xi gradually moved away from his position. Of course, he wouldn't admit that he had been pinned down on the maid who was shining with spring light for so long. It was to test whether she was in a fake coma or a real coma, not just to enjoy. Fortunately, with the exploration of his soul perception, which he could barely handle as a first-grade alchemist, he had already determined. This woman is really in a coma state, and the degree of coma exceeds his imagination. I believe that she cannot wake up until dawn. And this can actually be seen from another perspective, that guy Xiao Yan sometimes really doesn't have the heart to cherish fragrance and jade. Truly ruthless and ruthless. However, speaking of which, although the maid on the bed may have some beauty, she is undoubtedly not attractive enough in front of Xiao Suner, or even Xiao Yu and Xiao Mei of the Xiao family. No wonder they are Emperor Yan. With a calm mind, Liu Xi lay on the bed and slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, she had time to focus on pondering and studying the system in her mind. System. Are you there? He first tried to call out in his mind. However, this attempt did not stir up any change in the mind. This. System. System. Where are you in the system? System, come out quickly. System, don't scare me. System. After a slightly exaggerated shout, Liu Xi expressed that he was confused. He even suspected that this system might be imitating his previous use of Guishi Dan to pretend to be dead. Is this Nima really a practical example? After shouting in his mind for a while, there was still no response, and Liu Xi felt a bit discouraged. Is this system playing with him? Are you still playing with him? Ma Dan. You're driving me crazy. After cursing heavily, Liu Xi opened his eyes in frustration, but as soon as he opened them, he realized. Sure enough, he was still too young. The other person's system did not appear in his mind at all, but was directly visualized as a virtual panel the size of a computer screen that only he could see and control. Good guy. Are the current systems not playing cards according to common sense? Or is his thinking no longer keeping up with the tide of the times? When Liu Xi saw the virtual panel, his anger had dissipated. Liu Xi's spirit was shocked, and he did not forget to complain while staring at the virtual panel. Is there a string of crimson-colored numbers on the prominent position on the virtual panel that attracts attention at a glance? The tail of that string of numbers is constantly changing over time. A breath passed. 2 breaths passed. 3 breaths passed, my grass. Liu Xi couldn't help but curse. He clearly realized that this was probably his remaining longevity yuan. He took a look and found out that his birthday is still half a quarter of an hour short of 1 year, 1 month, and 8 hours. Alright, he already knew about his remaining lifespan when the system was turned on earlier. But knowing it is one thing, but when one's lifespan is clearly displayed in front of oneself, watching it disappear bit by bit, a huge fear surges into one's heart. Feeling the rising cold from the soles of her feet, Liu Xi only felt that her body was icy cold at this moment. The slightly relaxed mind that had just survived the disaster suddenly lifted up again, and his whole body seemed to be shrouded in a terrifying haze. Dong! 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 Even now, he felt his heartbeat incredibly clear. He realized that for a considerable period of time in the future, his body and mind would probably be shrouded in the crimson haze of fear. Until that string of numbers clears to 0. To obtain liberation. No. I want to live. I want to continue living. I finally survived a great disaster and came to this world to be reborn. How could I just accept my fate like this? Liu Xi sat up on the couch, and the surging emotions in his heart completely overwhelmed the pain that came from all over his body. At some point, blood streaks covered his entire eyeball, his eyes were round, and the veins and blood vessels on his neck were highlighted by the boiling of qi and blood all over his body, which made him look extremely ferocious. Live! Live! I must live! My upper and lower lips kept trembling, and the 3 words, live, kept repeating themselves. This is his obsession with Liu Xi. The obsession from someone who has already died once. Yes. Main quest. Look at the main quest. Main quest can increase longevity. Liu Xi quickly searched for the task column on the virtual panel with his eyes filled with red blood and a faint red light. Soon, his blood-red gaze caught a glimpse of the long column about the task. At this moment, there is only one main task in that column, which is to preach to a fighter, receive karma, and dispel doubts, corresponding to extending one's life by 1 day. Note. If the object of preaching, receiving knowledge, and resolving confusion is a dosha, the corresponding life expectancy will be extended by 5 times that of the instructor dosha, and so on. For each subsequent level, the corresponding life expectancy will be extended by 5 times that of the previous level. Note: if the target of preaching, receiving karma, or dispelling doubts is a person who carries the energy of this world, the reward will be calculated separately. Do I receive teachings to dispel doubts? Am I just a 6-star fighter now? What else can I teach others? Do I preach? Teach? Solve doubts? Don't think about the first 2 for now, maybe we can consider the last one to dispel doubts. Liu Xi managed to suppress his almost collapsing emotions. Suddenly, he glanced at the virtual panel with his eyes lit up. He had also been dazzled by that string of bloody numbers before, forgetting to complete the system activation task released by the system, but had obtained the system activation gift package. I reached out my finger and poked the orange-red electronic gift package located in the bottom right corner of the panel. When his fingers touched the panel, the interface of the panel area underwent interactive changes. Please confirm whether to open the gift package. Click to confirm, confirm. Liu Xi clicked down with his fingers. Then, a brilliant white light emanated from the small area on the panel. The gift package was opened by him. And he also saw the items after the gift package was opened in the Props and Items section through the virtual panel. There seems to be a lot of things coming out, and the first page of the Props and Items section is directly filled halfway. Good guy. What kind of system activation gift package is this? It's clearly a beginner's big gift package covered in a skin, okay. Just a rough glance at what was on top, Liu Xi felt that her eyeballs were about to protrude. Immediately afterwards, he noticed that his cheeks below the corner of his mouth seemed somewhat moist. So I wiped it with my hand. Sticky all right, he admitted that even a person who didn't pay attention couldn't help but spit out saliva. Fortunately, no one saw it, otherwise it would be really shameless. 7 rank peak pill. Xian Bodhisattva Foundation Pill *1. Description: lays the most solid foundation for young cultivators to cultivate in the future. 7-level peak pill. Wash marrow and create transformation pill *1. Description: wash bones and cut marrow on the basis of original cultivation qualifications. 7-star fighting master 3-day experience card *7. Description: after use, you will have the strength of a 7-star fighting master, lasting for 3 days without any sequelae. 7-star fighting master 1-day experience card *21. Description: after use, you will have the strength of a 7-star fighting master, which lasts for 1 day without any sequelae. Invisible mask *1. Description: wearing it on the face will automatically blend into the facial skin, which can change the appearance in the eyes of others, and has the function of concealing one's true strength. Opportunity copying card *1. Description: it can randomly select and copy a copy from an opportunity that has not yet been obtained by a specified object. Mysterious cigarette. Description: after a meal, a cigarette surpasses a living immortal. Silver lighter *1. Description: things ignited by him will have unexpected effects. A collection of poker. Description: combining work and rest while practicing, it took about half a cup of tea for Liu Xi to carefully examine what he had opened from the gift package. However, his expression gradually became strange, and he even looked a bit constipated. It has to be said that the first 2 top-notch 7th grade pills have already shaken his spirit. Continuing to read further, the Big Dipper experience card also flashed countless thoughts in his mind in an instant. If he used this thing well and used it on the blade, it would be quite amazing. But when Liu Xi saw that invisible mask, he felt that among the many gift items, it was this one that had the most affinity with him. Good thing. Is there anything more suitable for his willow mat than this? He was also shocked by the chance to copy the card, and secretly thought that this system was too incredible. Even this kind of creation that takes away heaven and earth. This is too. What's going on then? However, as his gaze continued to shift downwards and he caught a glimpse of the last 3 items, his mentality collapsed. Is this system toxic? Seeking collection and recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Oh my God, it's so fragrant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Oh my God, it's so fragrant. What are these all about? Cigarettes. Lighter. Poker. Do you want him to become a drug addict? Gamblers. Which of these 3 things is in line with the purpose of this system, which is to impart knowledge and solve problems to teachers? Look. A cigarette after a meal is better than a living immortal. Is that just human language? He admits that a cigarette after a meal is refreshing, but he understands that smoking is harmful to health. Do you want him to close his eyes and kick his legs as soon as possible? By the way, what is the name of this system? Good teacher. I'm going to Nima. Is it okay to be a teacher? Is it true that being a drug addict or a gambler can serve as a role model? Are you afraid he wants to harm the young people in this aggressive continent? Stretching out 2 fingers, Liu Xi rubbed his eyebrows, relieving the mental confusion and fatigue caused by the tense nerves of the night. Time is running out, and my lifespan is only a little over a year old. Tonight, I will swallow the Xuanbidi building pill and the wash marrow creation pill. Transform the resources into strength as soon as possible, so as not to have many dreams at night. When tomorrow morning breaks, I will find a reason to leave this additional family. Then, I will find an opportunity to complete the main task of this system and extend my lifespan to a few. Underneath her heart, she secretly made up her mind, and Liu Xi struggled to gather her energy. She operated the virtual panel and clicked on the claim, touch positions behind the 2 7th grade peak pills. In the next moment, 2 tightly sealed small boxes suddenly appeared in his arms. Looking around, I noticed that at the top of the small box, there was a seal engraved with a powerful soul power. Before Liu Xi could use his insignificant soul perception to explore, he had already felt the powerful soul waves emanating and leaking from those 2 seals. TSK. This system is really black technology. Even the containers used to collect pills are rare and good things. As an alchemist, he certainly knows that when the level of a pill reaches a certain level, unexpected changes will occur. During the final stage of refining a pill of grade 6 or higher, which is when the pill is formed, it will cause a certain range of celestial anomalies. The higher the grade, the greater the celestial anomalies caused. Even at the moment of formation, some high-grade pills will give birth to spiritual intelligence, giving birth to pill spirits internally. Some may even directly transform into objects, beasts, and even more so, pills will transform into humans. And at this moment, the 7th-grade peak elixirs in the 2 small boxes in Liu Xi's arms are already possessing a certain level of simple awareness of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. The word seal, engraved on the surface of the box with soul power, is used to prevent the medicinal power contained in the elixir from gradually dissipating over time. Secondly, it is used to seal the consciousness formed by the elixir, so that it cannot open the box on its own and escape. I am currently the strength of a 6-star fighter. If I were to switch to other ordinary 7th-grade pills, due to their strong and violent power, they would not be suitable for me to take at this time. However, these 2 pills are gentle and gradually effective, laying the foundation for young and weak people like me. So, I don't have to worry. If I swallow the pills recklessly, it will be detrimental to my health and ultimately lead to explosive death. Just which of the 2 pills should I swallow first to maximize the effect? On the couch, Liu Xi divided 2 boxes into his hands, holding one in each hand. On his left hand was the Xuanbidi building pill, which could lay the most solid foundation for young cultivators in future cultivation. On his right hand was the wash marrow creation pill, which could wash bones and cut marrow on the basis of his original cultivation qualifications. These two advanced pills, when used together, undoubtedly can change a person's future, and their value is immeasurable. As for the effect, it is self-evident. With the preciousness and grade of the two pills, at least it can ensure that the user can cultivate to the level of Emperor Dou without any bottleneck. In other words, with these two pills, even if your original cultivation skills are extremely poor after taking them, as long as you don't die prematurely midway, you can ensure that you can smoothly become a strong fighter for the Emperor. In the original work, the Soul Palace describes someone as saying, even a pig can cultivate to the level of Emperor Dou. Of course, this is all just a joke, but at this moment, Liu Xi has already chosen the pill he swallowed first. Put the small box on your left hand into the receiving ring, and leave behind the wash marrow creation pill that enhances your qualifications by washing bones and cutting marrow. However, at this moment, Liu Xi was not in a hurry to take the pill. Instead, he looked at the maid lying unconscious on the bed beside him. The movement of swallowing the 7th grade pill may be quite loud, and the process of absorbing the pill should not be disturbed. If this woman wakes up when I am practicing, the consequences will be. At this moment, Liu Xi's narrow and long Danfeng eyes narrowed slightly, with a strange and ever-changing light in their eyes. Finally, he closed his eyes and let out a sigh. Sure enough, I am still a law-abiding citizen of Aquarius, that's all. As he spoke to himself, he temporarily closed the virtual panel in front of him. With one hand, he mobilized his internal fighting spirit and grabbed the maid's neck, lifting it up like lifting an orange cat. Then, he endured the pain from his leg wounds, stayed up, walked to the open window, and then exerted a slight force on his hand, throwing the person out subsequently. He tightly closed all the doors and windows in the room, and then took out 4 jade stones embedded with second-order Warcraft cores from the Na ring, placing them in the 4 corners of the room. When the last piece of jade was placed, the magic core on each piece of jade suddenly emitted a faint light. Then, Liu Xi could feel that the outside of his room had formed a cover that was invisible to the naked eye, isolating the inside and outside. This is to prevent the leakage of air and noise inside the house. These 4 jade stones were originally prepared by Liu Xi during alchemy to avoid unexpected disturbances, but now they are cheaper for him. I didn't expect that the original owner of this body was just a first-rate alchemist, with a considerable amount of wealth and savings. Those higher-level alchemists still deserve it. After finishing all of this, Liu Xi can now start swallowing those 2 rare and expensive pills. Sitting on the bed, Liu Xi carefully placed the small box containing the wash marrow creation pill in front of him, and then reached out to press the mechanism on the box. I only heard a click. The box slowly opens. In an instant, a refreshing fragrance of the pill filled the box. In the next moment, Liu Xi quickly reached out with his right hand and tightly grasped the dragon's eye-sized wash marrow creation pill inside, which was already about to move as soon as he opened the box. Good guy. Fortunately, I acted quickly. Otherwise, I would have let you run away. Liu Xi stared at the pill and chuckled. After speaking, he no longer hesitated and grabbed the pill before delivering it to his own mouth. Boom! The pill melts at the entrance, transforming into a majestic magical power that rushes towards the limbs and bones of Liu Xi. The crackling sound of stir-frying beans is incessant. Before Liu Xi could even express his admiration for this magnificent and delightful medicinal power, his eyelids twitched lightly in the next moment, and a hint of ominous omen flashed away in his heart. I'm careless. I'm careless. Liu Xi only had time to blurt out such a sentence, and was immediately silenced by the excruciating pain from deep within his bones. I saw his face quickly turn pale, his whole body trembling, his face twitching incessantly, and his eyes rolled back, resembling the appearance of those crazy patients on the water blue star when they were sick. Ha! Ha! After a brief and intense pain that caused him to lose his voice, Liu Xi just took a breath. However, the next wave of ant bone-devouring pain from the bone marrow and tendons all over his body made him emit a wild beast-like roar deep in his throat. He felt as if his entire bone marrow was boiling at this moment. There are thousands of ants crawling, biting. This. Ha. Is this the pain of washing marrow? Ha. Ha. I Liu Xi. As long as I'm still alive, I can handle it. Liu Xi gritted his teeth tightly, resisting the instinctive howling of his body. However, as he held on, blood seeped out from the corners of his mouth due to his tightly closed teeth. It was the blood seeping out from his teeth and gums when he exerted too much force. The blood vessels on the forehead and temples, as well as the visible bulging of veins on the neck. Clack. Clack. The blood oozing from the corners of his mouth slowly slid down, initially converging on his chin and dripping onto the bed and bedding. At the same time, his body became incredibly hot for some reason, and wisps of heat began to emerge above his head. The forehead, temples, back, neck, and bean-sized beads of sweat are forming at an astonishing speed, constantly growing and falling down. Fortunately, after taking this wash marrow creation pill, the pain of washing marrow that was so painful came suddenly and went away quickly. About half a cup of tea. Under the crazy operation of Liu Xi's martial arts, the initial dire situation of taking the pill gradually improved after being restrained from escalating. Another quarter of an hour has passed. Except for a slight tremble, there was no other abnormality around Liu Xi's body. Suddenly, Liu Xi opened his eyes, and in the narrow and long eyes of Dan Feng, a brilliant light flashed. Immediately after, under the sudden relaxation of his body, a stronger breath burst out than before. Did you exchange my bone marrow for me? Why was my bone marrow burning like a blazing fire just now, so hot that it was almost evaporating, but now I feel icy cold all over my bones? Ha! I let out a long sigh. But now he found that the breath he exhaled contained a medicinal fragrance. He speculated that this should be due to the majestic mysterious medicinal power of the wash marrow creation pill, which was still accumulated in his body and far from being digested. In fact, this was also within his expectations. Originally, the benefits of both pills were to nourish his body unconsciously, and it was impossible to make his body turn upside down at once. However, now that this result is really in front of him, he still finds it somewhat difficult to accept. The pill he just took, although its main function is to improve and enhance a person's cultivation ability, contains rich and powerful medicinal power that he cannot imagine at this stage. After all, it is a 7th-grade pill. However, it was this kind of pill that he could have absorbed 70% or 80% of its initial power if he took it. However, he only digested 50% or 60% of it in reality, and the rest was wasted. Of course, although there is still a large amount of medication accumulated in the body, it is impossible to achieve such significant benefits as taking it for the first time. At least, it's not possible to see immediate results in the short term. However, despite this, his current strength has risen from a 6-star fighter to a 7-star fighter, and has been elevated to a 9-star fighter in one fell swoop. The strength of the 7th-grade pill can be seen from this. And this wash marrow and transform pill is not a specialized pill among the 7-rank pills for improving cultivation. If we really want to talk about the benefits of one's own cultivation, we are afraid that the Xuanbody building pill stored in his precepts at this moment will surpass the wash marrow creation pill by a lot. After all, the functions of the two are different. Damn it! I still want to refine 2 pills together tonight. Sure enough, the plan will never keep up with the changes, but ultimately, the level of my own cultivation skills is lower, just a mid-level general. In this world, anyone in a family like Wutan City who only has a few master martial arts masters can have this level of martial arts and combat skills. Closing her eyes and silently feeling the situation inside her lower body, Liu Xi shook her head and sighed to herself. A good cultivation method can determine too many things. If he were practicing the heavenly level technique, he would be at least a dosher now, able to break through his body with Douqi and transform into a Douqi gauze garment, wouldn't he? At present, the only good news is that after taking the wash marrow creation pill, the serious injury previously suffered under the hands of the goddess Xiao Suner has miraculously improved by half. At least the 3 blood holes on the body are no longer as terrifying as when they were first injured. I don't know if it's his hallucination, but the pain in the wound has also decreased significantly. Perhaps the piercing pain from taking the pill earlier had already numbed his nerves, right? Damn it. I feel angry when I think about it. This system opens the gift package, and what are the 3 things behind it? What kind of cigarettes, lighters, poker, I don't want. 3 for 1. 3 for 1. Is it okay? I want 3 for 1. I'm not greedy, just give me a sky-level advanced skill that I can barely survive. Unable to bear it and feeling increasingly frustrated, Liu Xi decided to open the virtual panel of the system once again and glanced at the items and props section. How much he hopes now, he was dizzy before. Why did he come up with those 3 things? I want to see. What's so special about these 3 things that they can be placed last among the items opened up? The last one. At this point, while his chest was suffocating, he couldn't help but feel a little curious about those 3 items in his heart. Punk. 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 I clicked on claim 3 times in a row. In the next moment, a so-called mysterious cigarette appeared in his arms, a silver lighter, and a collection of poker. And as his gaze fell on the packaging of the mysterious cigarette, the corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. The white packaging box features a golden tower and an undulating mountain range. God his mother, mystery cigarette. This is clearly the Red Pagoda Mountain cigarette from the water blue star Shenzhou Shanghua, okay. And it's still in a white box, of course. He didn't dislike Hongta Mountain and didn't think this cigarette was good. Smoke is good smoke, but what about the mysterious cigarette we agreed on? Where is the mysterious place? Damn it. I can't stand this cowardly anger. Liu Xi burst out in a rude tone. Subsequently, it seemed as if it had undergone a smooth and refined process. Shake out a pack of Bitashan cigarettes from a whole strip, open the packaging, take out one, then hold it in your mouth, take out the silver lighter, light it, squint your eyes slightly, bring the fire closer, and suck on the cigarette but with your mouth. Take a sip. Allow nicotine to enter the lungs, nerves, and upper body. After 1 cycle, slowly spit out. Ha! Inside, a gust of smoke enveloped the room. Oh my God! This white pagoda mountain is so fragrant. Seeking collection and recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Return Gun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Return Gun. The night is deep. In the early hours of this late night, there was no longer the noise of the day in Wutan City. At this time, even in the houses on both sides of the city's roads, the faint red-faced moans and panting sounds that came from it at night completely subsided. However, it's in this early morning night. Excluding the family. At the top of a building across the street. The girl in a golden dress stood tall and graceful above, her smooth calves bathed in the moonlight, making her look so tempting. At this moment, in the young girl's autumn water eyes, there was a faint golden radiance that was quite different from usual. It looks as if there are 2 small golden flames burning and swaying in my eyes. Who the hell are you? The voice of the young girl lazily rang out in this silent night, breaking the silence like the dawn of dawn. Across from the girl's line of sight, there was a low house, and at the top of the house, there was also a person standing, a person wearing a pitch-black cloak and a black robe. They have actually been in this area for quite some time now. However, at the beginning, neither side spoke and both sides were in a standoff. At this moment, the girl took the initiative to ask, obviously breaking the eerie atmosphere between them. Under the black robe, Xiao Yan was very helpless. Now it seems that when he was in Liu Xi's room, he might have been discovered by this girl. However, fortunately, this girl probably did not know that the person hiding under the black robe was him. But there were downsides to not knowing his identity, and now Xiao Yan was also very frustrated about it. Glancing at the faint hostility towards him in the eyes of the other party's autumn water, he felt a bit uneasy. I think you've seen me at the Xiao family, haven't you? The body was temporarily taken over by the old medicine man, and the old voice came from inside the black robe. Upon hearing this sound, Xiao Suner on the top of the attic furrowed her brows and spoke in a slightly unfriendly tone, saying, So, this is not the reason why you are also present in the Jia Lai family tonight. You usually stay by Xiao Yan's side, but when it is quiet tonight, you appear in the Jia Lai family. It's hard not to misunderstand. Who knows if you are from the Jia Lai family or someone else planted next to Xiao Yan's side. Tonight, if you can't explain clearly, I think Xiao Yan will not see you by his side again tomorrow. Good guy, this little girl is really domineering. Xiao Yan chuckled in his mind. And regarding this, Xiao Yan was also speechless in his heart, but who made him have too many secrets to hide from this girl now? It seems that being treated unfriendly by Suner tonight, I am going to swallow it by pinching my nose. Teacher, let's tell her the purpose of our trip. If necessary, it's also possible to tell her a little bit about our relationship. Suner is trustworthy. All right. When the old man needs me, he will call me out. When he doesn't need me, just like when I was in Liu Xi's room before, he made me close my external perception. Sigh. How could I be so unlucky? Under the black robe, several invisible black lines slowly appeared on Xiao Yan's forehead, and the corner of his mouth twitched. All right, teacher. I know my actions were a bit inappropriate to you when I was inside just now, but do you think we should first solve the trouble in front of us? I'll let you beat and scold me when the time comes. Hee hee. You little one, I'm just joking with you. I can't hold my breath. In this world, every person has secrets and even privacy. Let's talk about it first. You're a young man with strong willpower. If you have any needs to be solved in that area, remember to inform me in advance, so that I don't see or hear things that shouldn't be seen or heard. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan is really numb now. However, he also knew that Yao Lao said these things to eliminate the guilt of making Liu Xi feel isolated when he was there before. Realizing this, an inexplicable warm current surged through Xiao Yan's heart. A day as a teacher, a lifetime as a father. Teacher, all the things you have done for me will be remembered in my heart externally. The consciousness of the master and disciple was flirting in their minds, but in the eyes of Xiao Suner from the outside world, it was the other person deliberately keeping silent instead of wanting to answer her questions. So, since that's the case, then no one can blame her. Since the old gentleman doesn't even want to say a word, then please say goodbye to this world. Words fall. Xiao Suner raised her hand and spread out her 5 fingers on her right hand. Above her fingertips, the golden flame spikes that had previously killed Liu Xi in the Jiaoya family slowly reappeared, and this time, there were 5 flame spikes. Hiss. On the opposite roof, the medicinal old man who was manipulating Xiao Yan's body took an exaggerated breath and said to Xiao Yan in his heart. This little girl usually looks gentle and charming. Why is she so cold-faced? When she kills someone, she feels like she's changed. She gets into a big fight at a word of disagreement. She doesn't act with any delay. Hee hee, I have to say, little one, you have a good eye for people, and you found a treasure. Xiao Yan remained silent and said, Of course, although Yao Lao was communicating with his precious disciple on the one hand, he still didn't forget to negotiate with Xiao Suner on the other hand. He immediately used both his heart and soul, waving his hand at the girl at the top of the attic on the opposite side and saying, Stop, stop, stop. Miss, please don't rush to take action yet. I have something else to say here. Seeing this, Xiao Sun'er's eyebrows furrowed tightly, but her delicate body under the golden dress did not show any relaxation. On the fingertip of her right hand, 5 golden flame spikes spiraled and did not stop for a moment. But fortunately, perhaps she really disliked killing, so she gave the black-robed old man another chance to explain things clearly. I'll give you half a cup of tea. If you can't come up with a reason, I can't say. Even if I don't want to see it tonight, I'll see a second blood test. On the roof, although they had already decided to get straight to the point, the two inside the black robe still felt a slight headache when they saw Xiao Sun'er's tough posture. Yao Lao sighed and said directly. I want you, the girl, to know that my purpose of coming here is the same as yours. I was entrusted by someone to send the guy who teased the girl during the day to see the king of hell. After listening carefully to Yao Lao's words, the hostility in Xiao Sun'er's Qiushui eyes slowly dissipated, and the expression on her pretty face also returned to its previous gentle demeanor. The terrifying flame spikes on her bare fingertips had already disappeared when she heard the novel word, King of Hell. End. Xiao Sun'er smiled and said. The relationship between the old gentleman and brother Xiao Yan is indeed extraordinary. If Sun'er knew that the old gentleman would also go to the Jiaoye family to dispose of that dirty garbage, she wouldn't have to go this trip. She just got ahead of the old gentleman and ended up killing that guy, causing the old gentleman to come for nothing. Sun'er is here, compensating the old gentleman. Speaking, the girl blessed her body. And as she wore a noble golden dress, this auspicious gift highlighted a noble and elegant temperament that was different from usual. In the eyes of someone under the black robe, they also realized that the little girl who used to follow behind him and shout for Xiao Yan to play with her has really grown up, standing tall and graceful. Hee. Don't talk too much about the girl. Are you sure that Liu Xi really died in your hands? And actually, that guy isn't as bad as you see, girl. Under the black robe, Yao Lao smiled faintly and then made a long story short. After leaving her, he recounted how Liu Xi resurrected from death. Wait for the words to fall. Across from her, Xiao Sun'er's delicate face showed a hint of imperceptible embarrassment. Obviously, she didn't expect to be successfully deceived by such a guy. When she said that sentence just now, she really believed that the person had already died in her hands. But whoever thought after taking a few breaths to adjust her actually not calm state of mind, Xiao Sun'er turned her gaze towards the black-robed man again, frowning slightly and examining him, saying. So since the old man is already saying these things to Sun'er, I believe that guy must have truly died under the old man's repair, right? Cough. As soon as Xiao Sun'er spoke, under the black robe, Yao Lao couldn't hold his face and coughed lightly, saying. Originally, it was supposed to be as the girl said, but in the end, when we were about to solve that guy, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, it spared that guy a small life. Upon hearing the sound, Xiao Sun'er raised her eyebrows lightly, pursed her rosy lips, and asked. What's going on? The thing is that your brother Xiao Yan asked me to shut up. Old Yao secretly rose and said without delay. What exactly is going on? It's not convenient for me to talk to the girl here. But what if I really want to know? Xiao Sun'er curled her lips slightly, took a step forward with a gentle lotus step, and leaned forward with her right hand. The previously faded golden flame sharp thorn reappeared at her fingertips once again. Upon seeing this, Yao Lao's mouth twitched and he immediately had a clever idea. His tone was cunning and he said. Hee, it's better for girls to be less curious. In the end, I'll just say one thing. That matter involves a secret that your brother Xiao Yan attaches great importance to. If you continue to demand knowledge of everything like this, in the end, if your brother Xiao Yan finds out that you have indirectly disturbed his good deeds, it's inevitable that you will be a bit unhappy with the girl's rude behavior. In the end. Hee, I'm afraid it will affect the relationship between the two of you. After Yao Lao finished speaking, Xiao Sun'er's gaze in Qiu Shui's eyes slightly froze. The old man in front of her was so sharp in his words that he directly grabbed her life gate. Xiao Qing. The sharp spikes of flames jumping on her fingertips finally faded, and her bare hands slowly withdrew before hanging down. Xiao Sun'er's face softened and she said, Sun Er is leaving now. I hope that when the old man returns, he will not mention what he saw tonight to brother Xiao Yan. This is natural, Yao Lao nodded and smiled. Immediately, Xiao Sun'er saw the other party waving their black robe but throwing something. Your secret technique must be a heavy burden on your body, right? Take this nourishing qi powder and recover as soon as possible. Otherwise, if someone sees your weak appearance, they may feel a lot of pain. Upon hearing this, Xiao Sun'er's pretty face turned slightly red. She took the jade bottle and vigorously nodded her head. Then, she tiptoed slightly on the top of the pavilion, and Qianying jumped out of it. In the blink of an eye, its figure disappeared into the distant night. Just in place, Yao Lao stared at the direction where Xiao Sun'er had disappeared, and after a while, a strange expression gradually appeared on his face. For a long time, he seemed to have figured something out and couldn't help but burst out laughing. This little girl is quite interesting. Subsequently, he informed Xiao Yan of what he had guessed. What? Teacher, you said she's heading towards the Gale family again. Xiao Yan was stunned. Hee, isn't that where we came out just now? And guess what she's doing when she turns back? Yao Lao smiled faintly. Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment, then his face suddenly changed and he shouted loudly. Not good. At this moment, add the family. Backyard. In a house. The smoke was tightly shrouded inside. At this moment, Liu Xi was smoking the so-called mysterious cigarette, swallowing clouds and exhaling mist, feeling really happy. On the bed, Liu Xi felt the faint increase in his soul strength and physical fitness with every sip of the White Pagoda Mountain cigarette he took. He was overjoyed, and the corners of his mouth were almost cracking to the roots of his ears. Take another sip. This time, I feel more and more carefully as the nicotine enters the lungs, nerves, and finally the head, completing a cycle. He wants to know why every time he takes a sip of a cigarette, his soul power and internal organ strength increase slightly. He wants to figure out why on earth. However, as expected, after smoking this second cigarette, he still didn't know why. Damn it. Not studying so much anymore, it's a good thing. Since smoking is not only harmless to the body, but also beneficial, why bother with so much? With that time, why not think about how to deceive a few fighters to preach, teach, and solve their doubts, complete the main task, and extend their lifespan? Ha! Liu Xi slowly exhaled the second-hand smoke, and as he watched the smoke inside the house, it became more and more intense with the addition of the exhaled second-hand smoke. He couldn't help but feel a murmur in his heart. By the way, is it really nicotine that completes a cycle in his body? He is somewhat skeptical. After smoking 2 cigarettes in a row, he felt that his soul power, which was not particularly strong in the group of alchemists, had grown significantly. I'm afraid this intensity is approaching the level of a second-grade alchemist, isn't it? Squeezing the cigarette butt out, he spread the open pack of cigarettes and the silver lighter in his palm, looking at them again and again. Is the problem with this silver lighter? Or is it that the cigarette itself is not simple? For no reason, he remembered the system's description of these two things. Mysterious cigarette. Description. After a meal, a cigarette surpasses a living immortal, silver lighter *1. Description. Things ignited by him will have unexpected effects, immersed in contemplation. Liu Xi suddenly raised his head and his narrow phoenix eyes looked towards the position of the window pane. There seems to be some movement there. At this moment, the 4 jade stones in the 4 corners of the room suddenly showed fine cracks together. Liu Xi sensed that the energy shield that separated the inside and outside of this room had already broken. Immediately afterwards, a strong sense of unease surged in my heart. Seeking collection, recommended tickets, comments, all kinds of requests. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Xiao Yan without awesome. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Xiao Yan without awesome outside the house. After breaking through the weak magic core energy barrier, Xiao Suner slowly lowered her hand and the golden flame spikes on her fingertips gradually converged. With her head lowered, she looked down at the ground not far away, where a maid, wrapped only in a thin layer of bath gauze, was lying in a position facing the soil. The maid's breath was low and not hurried, clearly in a state of unconsciousness. However, the maid was clearly unconscious lying on the bed in the room earlier. How could you tell from this posture that someone threw her out? Maid Dai furrowed slightly, and Xiao Suner felt a hint of doubt in her heart. However, she didn't come here to see this irrelevant maid, but she was ultimately a kind-hearted girl. Since she saw it, there was no need to treat it as not seeing it. This could be considered innocent. If she were allowed to lie alone outside all night, with her ordinary physique, she would suffer from mild cold tomorrow and severe illness, intertwined with death. I casually took out a featureless fur cloak from the ring and covered it on the maid's body. Complete this task. Xiao Suner then refocused her gaze on the window pane. At this moment, the window pane is tightly closed from inside, and perhaps the person inside already knows that someone is coming. With a click, the window pane slowly opens. The next moment, there is a sound coming from inside the house. But if someone visits, please come inside and chat. Outside. Xiao Suner's mouth curled slightly as she heard the sound. The small magic core energy barrier had been broken by her, and she didn't believe that the person inside didn't know that the incoming person was not good. Moreover, from the other person opening the window instead of letting her enter through the door, it was clear that they had guessed that she was the person who had previously entered through the window, seriously injured her, and then emerged from the window. This person now seems to be exactly as the old gentleman said, not as bad as he had seen before. However, no matter what kind of person you are, as long as you insult Brother Xiao Yan, I will not allow you to live in this world again. A chill slowly brewed on her delicate face, and Xiao Suner's delicate body leaned forward slightly. With a light lotus step, her figure had already leaped forward, and once again, her beautiful figure had come to the top of the window sill. However, as soon as Xiao Suner jumped into the room, she was frowned by the smoky environment inside. As soon as she entered the room, she suddenly choked on a second-hand cigarette. It was only then that Xiao Suner's impression of the guy in front of her slightly changed and she quickly returned to her original form. This person is indeed hopeless. In the words of Brother Xiao Yan, living in this world is like wasting air and polluting the environment. Since that's the case, if you kill him, then kill him. Fortunately, I hesitated for a moment just now. Choked by the smoke inside the room, Xiao Suner coughed lightly twice, and her determination to kill Liu Xi became even stronger. In fact, looking back at the original work, there are very few people that Xiao Suner personally killed, and they can even be described with a few fingers. Liu Xi is probably the blood of her life. The first person to kill in life. Miss Suner, I'm really sorry. I also know that my current environment is somewhat unbearable. Using such a place to entertain you would be against the way of hospitality. However, we both understand. This is the second time you have come here, you must have learned the news that I'm not dead and come back to make up for it. Since you came here to take my life, if it's not kind, then these details are actually not so important. Liu Xi stood in front of the bed, speaking in a rare and elegant manner. Your strength. Surprisingly, you have reached the level of a Big Dipper master. And your previous injuries are almost healed. Xiao Sun'er's eyes, which fell on Liu Xi's body, slightly condensed. In surprise, her face gradually became more serious. Hee. Let Miss Sun'er laugh, so that she knows that my current strength is a 7-star fighting master. Although I may not be your opponent yet, I can still use 2 moves. If Miss wants to easily injure me like before, it is impossible. In this world, Miss is not the only one who has secret techniques. Liu Xi's face finally became less serious and tense, his mouth slightly opened, and he smiled stiffly. He boasted about his strength and said these words, not because he had used a 7-star Douqi one-day experience card and suddenly became bloated and foolish, but because besides these words, there was really nothing to say at the moment. If he didn't want to fight immediately and be unexpectedly defeated and killed, then he would just say some nonsense and delay the time. Yes. He is really not a match for Xiao Sun'er. It's not that he underestimates himself, but that he has self-awareness. Currently, he has the realm of a 7-star fighting master. As for the actual strength that can be exerted, it's probably just a matter of abusing the Douqi and Doja. There's no way, who made the original body a alchemist. Not very skilled in combat. It seems that there are only 2 high-level yellow-level combat skills, and 1 low-level melee combat skill, Inch Mang, from the Xian level that can barely be mastered. Besides that, it's gone. Moreover, he remembers that even the inch-long hair seemed to have not been trained to perfection in its original form, right? What does this make him fight Xiao Sun'er, who comes from 8 ancient tribes and uses secret techniques? He is now called the Great Dou Master, and may not even be able to achieve the basic Dou Qi detached armor of the Great Dou Master. Can he go up and deliver vegetables? Don't look at him smiling in front of Xiao Sun'er now, as if he's relaxed. In fact, his heart is in a state of panic, completely filled with internal criticism. He knew that Xiao Sun'er's strength, which appeared to have been enhanced by secret techniques, was actually just using the power of secret techniques to unleash a trace of the power of the Golden Emperor burning heavenly flame, which was originally sealed in her body and ranked 4th on the strange fire list. And even this slightest bit is enough to make Xiao Sun'er, who currently has only a Dou, crush all the strong ones below Dou Ling. Therefore, Liu Xi, who was clear about the details, had no intention of actually fighting Xiao Sun'er at this moment. If he hadn't felt that begging for mercy on his knees might have been faster than being caught, he might have hit the ground with a thud as soon as Xiao Sun'er entered the room. It seems that kneeling down to the goddess, although also very shameful, can still reluctantly accept it for the sake of one's own small life. The only thing he can do now is to delay as much as possible, waiting for the news that leaked his life to Xiao Sun'er. Damn it, Xiao Yan. As for why he is so certain that it is the information leaked by Xiao Yan, it seems that there is no need to explain. After all, there were only a few people present at the time, and he was familiar with the original work. After knowing that Xiao Yan would go out later, he was likely to encounter Xiao Sun'er waiting outside. I can only say that you are ignorant and fearless. The strength of the 7-star fighting master may be top-notch in Yuten City, but once you leave Yuten City, any stronger first-tier city with your strength cannot even stir up a ripple if thrown into it. Xiao Sun'er's red lips opened and closed, and she said coldly. As the words fell, a faint golden light appeared in her autumn eyes, and upon closer inspection, one could see that the golden light was actually a cluster of swaying golden flames. Before the bed, Liu Xi certainly agreed with Xiao Sun'er's words, but at this moment, he did not show any agreement on the surface, because it did not conform to the persona he was struggling to maintain. On the contrary, he had to show disdain for her words. However, just as he wanted to take the opportunity to say a few brainless and harsh words to delay time, he felt a slight chill on the soles of his feet. At this point, even if he no longer wanted to, he had to clearly realize that his strategy of delaying time had come to an end. Because across from him, the girl in a noble golden dress, with her breath shining in her eyes, began to climb step by step. If his aura had been maintained at the mid-level of the Great Dou Master before, then at this moment, after a few breaths, his aura has become as strong as the peak of the great Dou Master. Moreover, looking at the continued pace of ascent, it seems that the distance to reaching Douling is not far either. I'll be obedient. I'm afraid it's because he now has an empty airs like a 7-star fighting master. In order to seek stability, he needs to use an ox knife to kill chickens. At this moment, Liu Xi actually wanted to tell Xiao Suner that there was no need to be so troublesome. With his previous strength, he couldn't even take a few moves. By the way, why hasn't Xiao Yan from Go Ri come back yet? Didn't he come back without seeing his wife kill her? But even if Xiao Yan didn't notice, Yao Lao, as an old martial artist, shouldn't he be like this too? Or rather, Yao Lao saw it but deliberately didn't tell Xiao Yan. At the thought of this possibility, fine beads of sweat gradually emerged from Liu Xi's forehead, and his previously stable hands under his robe began to tremble again and again. Half a pillar of incense. Excluding the family. At the top of a low building across the street. Standing there in a black robe, the night breeze blew, making the man's clothes rustle as he hunted. Under the black robe, Xiao Yan's delicate face was full of entanglements. No way. Teacher, I still have to go over. If I continue to struggle, I'm afraid Liu Xi will really die this time. Hehe, you are quite interested in that willow mat now, but what I want to remind you is that once we go, all the secrets you want to cover up and conceal in front of that little girl tonight and even before, including the form of my soul attached to you, will be exposed. Yao Lao calmly said. What? Is it so serious? Xiao Yan widened his eyes, somewhat incredulous. What? Do you think that girl's brain is very stupid? During her time at the Xiao family, even during her recent contact, she was constantly probing. Oh, you should never underestimate a woman's intelligence and curiosity. Yao Lao coaxed patiently. But. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan hesitated to speak. What he actually wanted to say was that the current Liu Xi had an extraordinary meaning for him, but after all, they had only been in contact once. If he behaves too abnormally in front of the old medicine man again, it is inevitable that the old medicine man will not think too much. After all, his previous change in attitude towards Liu Xi is already quite puzzling. So, have you decided to go over now? Asked the old medicine practitioner. Is it still possible to pass now? Xiao Yan felt a bit weak and powerless. At this moment, he could see that as far as Yao Lao himself was concerned, he didn't want him to go. Looking back now, when he was planning to immediately chase after Sun Er and stop her, Yao Lao's appropriate words made him hesitate, which was because he had some thoughts that he couldn't go. In fact, this is also human nature. The less people know about the current state of the soul, the better. Otherwise, it will increase greatly in variables. Now, when I think about it again, Yao Lao's action has also taken the hand of Suner to solve the problem of Liu Xi, who already knew of its existence. Perhaps, when Suner was still here just now, she deliberately casually revealed the news that Liu Xi was not dead yet. When he was in Liu Xi's room at that time, he suddenly changed his attitude towards Liu Xi, and Yao Lao naturally couldn't help but see it. The reason why he didn't personally kill Liu Xi at that time was probably to avoid the gap between their master and disciple, while the subtle use of Sun Er's hand was different, which could leave him speechless. From the beginning, he shouldn't have asked his teacher's opinion. Seeing the baby apprentice feeling unhappy, Yao Lao's soul and body directly escaped from the ring and floated in mid-air like a ghost. Facing Xiao Yan, he said directly. Judging from that little girl's decisive actions, it was too late now, but she must have made it just now. Xiao Yan glanced at Yao Lao and remained silent. No one can know his feelings. He has been in this world for 16 years, and this year is his 17th year. Finally, he has met a fellow countryman from Aquarius. No one can appreciate that excitement. The kind of subconscious closeness in the depths of one's soul when knowing that the other person also comes from the same place and can match the same meme. I'm afraid no one can understand this world anymore, right? The only person who understands is probably already dead in the hands of Sun Er. However, Xiao Yan is not blaming his own teacher. Perhaps if he were an old medicine practitioner, he would also be like this, wouldn't he? If you are a person, you will always have selfishness. This is human nature. I do have some selfishness in this matter, but more importantly, it is to give you your own opinions. You may not have noticed it yourself. Over the past year, you have been too lazy towards me, which is not a good sign. A truly strong person needs to have their own persistence and opinions. Without these two things, even if your cultivation talent is strong, you cannot reach the top of this Douqi Continent. As for the matter of Liu Xi, you don't need to be too dull. That guy has been giving me a feeling of not being able to see through tonight. I think he should be a really tough guy. That little girl might turn around and take her life after listening to Yao Lao's words. Although Xiao Yan knew that his teacher might be comforting him, he couldn't help but think of Liu Xi's calm demeanor when facing himself and Yao Lao in that room. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's mood felt much better. Teacher, let's go back. Oh. Don't wait any longer, maybe the result has already come out. No need, I believe that guy Liu Xi wouldn't die so easily. Xiao Yan paused each word. Because we all come from that blue planet. He added in his heart. Okay, what's the result? I can still know tomorrow, but it's just a matter of time. Seeking collection, recommended tickets, and comments. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Strange Secondhand Smoke. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Strange Secondhand Smoke at a Family. Backyard. In the smoke-filled willow mat residence. The two faced off, their swords drawn and their crossbows strained. During this period, no one noticed that during the confrontation and conversation between the two, Xiao Suner was breathing. In this relatively closed environment, the thick smoke mixed with air quietly entered her body, and it was unclear what kind of impact it would have on her. And Liu Xi was also breathing, but the smoke seemed to have grown eyes, just not running around Liu Xi's mouth and nose. And what is the reason for this? Is it just because this smoke is second-hand smoke exhaled by Liu Xi through his mouth and nose while smoking? Boom. Between confrontations. Xiao Suner's breath finally climbed to the limit of her current physical endurance. First time entering Douling. Dida. A hint of crimson blood seeped out from the corner of Xiao Suner's mouth, then dripped, staining her already rosy and tempting lips, adding a strange allure to her. The strength carried by her body now has generated a great load. With a gentle flick of her slender fingers towards the corner of her mouth, a faint golden glow filled Xiao Suner's eyes. At this moment, Liu Xi, who was stared at by his gaze, softened his legs and instinctively stepped back, sitting directly on the bed behind him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Xiao Suner took a light lotus step, and the distance between her and Liu Xi, which was already not far, was infinitely drawn closer. When only a few steps were left, her bare hands extended slightly, and the sharp flames of her fingertips quickly appeared. The slight energy fluctuations emanating from the spiral rotation of the flame spikes were much stronger than before. Liu Xi had no doubt that if Xiao Suner lightly bounced this object out again and landed on his flesh and blood body, it would probably not be as simple as being burned into a terrifying blood hole. He was afraid that he would directly pierce through his body. Faced with this situation, even if he still had a turtle breath pill on him at this time, it was of no use. Tonight, it's really ups and downs. After all, is it still difficult to escape death? Liu Xi smiled self-deprecatingly as the death that accompanied Xiao Suner approached step by step. From the time you insulted him in the neighborhood during the day, you were destined not to live. 3 feet away from Liu Xi, Xiao Suner stopped and looked at the man in front of her. A hint of something unusual flashed in her autumn water eyes. It has to be said that she went through so many twists and turns tonight to kill such a small character, and in the end, she forcibly increased her strength to Douling in order to kill her. She also paid a certain price for this, and her body will be very weak in the future. Moreover, when she paid the price to improve her strength, she realized that she seemed to have been deceived by this guy again. It seems that you, the 7-star fighting master, are also illusory. You don't even know how to transform your fighting spirit into armor. Your so-called secret method seems like an ordinary person. It's not enough to support you to truly unleash the strength of the fighting master. The feeling of being deceived again is always uncomfortable, and this person is still the target she wants to kill, which gives Xiao Suner a bad feeling of being pressed and rubbed on the ground with intelligence. Thinking of this, Xiao Suner's delicate face became slightly colder. With a light lift of her right hand, the flame spikes on her fingertips seemed to be ready to come out at any moment. Did you discover it so quickly? Liu Xi sat slumped on the couch, facing Xiao Suner, who could take her own life at any time, with a forced smile on her face. With a dry smile on her face, at this moment, a hint of doubt arose in Liu Xi's heart. When she was seriously injured by Xiao Suner for the first time tonight, her movements were straightforward and not sloppy at all. She didn't even say a word and started directly. But what happened this time? A different person. In fact, due to her excessive nervousness, Liu Xi never noticed that when the goddess first entered this smoke-filled room, with every breath, the rich second-hand smoke inside the room was inadvertently sucked into her body, especially in the 2 bites that she had just entered and couldn't prevent choking. Unconsciously, it made Xiao Suner's thoughts and activities in her mind slow and even led to a misjudgment of Liu Xi's true strength. Perhaps now Xiao Suner herself has not paid much attention, and her own head is already extremely dull. Consciousness is gradually becoming blurred, and this is also the real reason why she was talking nonsense to Liu Xi for the first time. However, Xiao Suner is after all an extraordinary woman. At this stage, she also vaguely sensed that there was something wrong with the room to some extent. But she hasn't figured out what's wrong for a while yet. Not to mention, she has already been taken. She only knew at this moment that there was a voice at the bottom of the invisible center reminding her that it was time to take action and not to drag on anymore. However, everything is too late as she sucked in the gray-white mist again, her eyelids finally drooped heavily. It was also at this moment that her delayed consciousness finally woke up to something amiss. With a splash. Wearing a noble golden dress, her delicate body slowly collapsed onto the red carpet laid on the ground. At the last moment of sobriety, she guessed that the smoke that caused her to capsize in her sewer was probably the one that choked her 2 bites. But in the end, she still couldn't figure it out. As soon as she came in and was choked, she cautiously sensed the smoke, and clearly in her perception, this smoke was not very harmful. How could she faint? This doesn't make sense, does it? Is it true that the smoke inside the house is so eerie? Even she couldn't detect any abnormalities. As for why Liu Xi is okay when she is in the same environment as her. This question is not within Xiao Suner's scope of consideration, because in her opinion, Liu Xi, a scumbag, and since there is a problem with the smoke, it must be the next 3 vulgar tactics he has arranged. And since it is arranged by it, there should be corresponding countermeasures. On the couch, Liu Xi watched as Xiao Suner suddenly collapsed without any warning, feeling a bit unresponsive for a moment. Compared to Xiao Suner's many doubts, his doubts at the moment are also not less, and that is, he does not know what Xiao Suner is thinking at the moment, otherwise, he would really be depressed to death. What is this all about? What happened tonight? He probably won't believe anyone when he talks about it in the future. Isn't this too absurd? Finally, after a while, he instinctively looked at the mist that was about to dilute and dissipate in the middle of the room. It can't be the second-hand smoke I exhale, is there a problem? But if there is a problem, why am I okay? This doubt lingered in Liu Xi's heart for a long time, and he couldn't figure it out. However, he can also see through it. Since he can't figure it out, let's not figure it out. He is still living well at the moment. Calm down slightly. He slowly turned his gaze to Xiao Suner, who was unconscious on the carpet. Glancing at the sky. Well, it's less than 3 hours until dawn. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Comatous Goddess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The Comatous Goddess in the early morning night. A figure in a black robe was galloping towards the direction of the Xiao family. Sooner, that girl, why is this killing power so strong? It's not enough to kill someone once. If you know you're not dead, you have to turn around and go back and kill them again. In his mind, Xiao Yan smiled bitterly at Yao Lao. His body was manipulated by his own teacher, which increased his speed on the way back. At the same time, he also had some free time before finding a topic to talk about. Hee, if you really think so, then you haven't figured out that girl's thoughts this time. Yao Lao chuckled lightly. What does the teacher mean by this? Xiao Yan couldn't understand. TSK, don't you really think that little girl went to kill Liu Xi tonight just because she was teased during the day? Isn't it? Xiao Yan retorted. You still don't quite understand women's thoughts. Actually, most of the time women don't pay much attention to the evil and scrutinizing gaze that falls on them, especially those who are beautiful. If you really care so much, then they probably have a bad mood all day and will have so much thought to dress themselves up beautifully. Speaking of which, Yao Lao paused for a moment and added to himself. There may still be a considerable number of women who do not refuse the kind of gaze and instead enjoy it more. The reason why that young woman went to join the family tonight is actually the same as your initial goal. It's not for yourself, but for the person you cherish in your heart, continued the old medicine practitioner. The person you cherish. Hee. Me. Xiao Yan's pitch black eyes were slightly dazed. All right. Think it over on your own. It's time to go somewhere. The sound of the old doctor's reminder sounded, and Xiao Yan only felt his gaze blurred. Then, a down to earth feeling surged in his heart, and he looked around, but he had already returned to his own yard. Without searching for the teacher's figure by his side, he knew that Yao Lao had returned to the Neji. After all, the soul body did not have a real body and appeared in the outside world for a long time. Even if it was attached to him, it was not suitable for itself and consumed a lot. He still needed to return to the special space of the Neji and slowly nourish it. There are still 2 or 3 hours before dawn. If you want to meditate and practice tonight, this time is actually possible. However, Xiao Yan wants to empty his mind in the latter half of the night, so that he can have a good time. Since the 3-year contract, he has spent most of his time squeezing his essence and spirit to death, practicing fighting spirit, fighting techniques, and medicine refining techniques, and so on. I dare not relax for a moment. It's been a long time since I really slept, maybe tonight, I can relax my nerves a bit. At this point, he did not immediately push open the door and, after entering the room to wash up, lay down in bed to sleep. Instead, he slowly turned around, turned his figure away from the room, looked over the courtyard wall, and gazed in the direction of the gallery family. There, he received a relatively large amount of information tonight. Sooner, what exactly is your identity? And that Liu Xi, can you really be safe tonight? Add to the family. Inside the house. My grass. The goddess's body is not light. At the age of 15 or 16, she is well developed, tsk. With one hand passing through the smooth and delicate curves of her legs, and the other holding her waist, Liu Xi picked up Xiao Sooner, dressed in a noble golden dress, from the carpet and slowly walked towards the bed. At this moment, the second-hand smoke in the room has disappeared and flowed clean through the window, and the air in the room has naturally returned to normal, while Xiao Sooner's breathing has gradually become calm. Of course, even before, Liu Xi didn't actually feel that there was any problem with the air inside the house, it was just the second-hand smoke he exhaled. By now, he was almost certain that Xiao Sooner's coma must be related to the second-hand smoke, and now it seems that the second-hand smoke should be truly harmless to him. As for the adverse reactions after Xiao Suner inhaled it, the current manifestation is only coma. Of course, the specific situation still needs to be asked in person after waking up. Arriving at the bed, he slowly put down the goddess. Although there were still more than 2 hours before dawn, if there were any vulgar thoughts, they could probably be realized. However, what had he become? Unconsciously engaging in sexual intercourse with the female partner. What kind of behavior is this called? Mystery. If it were the original Liu Xi, maybe he would have jumped on it long ago. Liu Xi shook his head secretly. Finally, he glanced at Xiao Suner's exquisite face and inexplicably swallowed his saliva. He scrutinized it carefully, once again stunning the beauty of the goddess, but also noticed a regretful expression remaining on her face. And this discovery made him think of many things, but the most questionable possibility was that at the moment when he was completely unconscious, he thought of what he might do to him. Damn it! Do you really take me seriously? That scumbag who can't walk when he sees a woman. Liu Xi couldn't help but gasp for a moment. However, at this critical moment, he certainly wouldn't really compete with a comatose person. Silently placing and arranging Xiao Suner on the bed, he returned to the front of the bed and slowly bent down, taking off his shoes and socks for the goddess. Tisk, it's really strange. Isn't it true that the sweat glands on girls' feet are many times denser than those on boys, making them more prone to foot odor? How come this woman's feet don't have any odor? Are people from this other world different? Not to mention, these pairs of golden lotus are crystal clear. Taking off her shoes and socks, Liu Xi covered the bed with the bedding for the goddess, and then went to get a cup of hot water and put it at the head of the bed. With a set of operations, she was like a model among warm-hearted men. Unfortunately, in the original world, warm men had no room for survival. In fact, after seeing more, Liu Xi gradually realized that a warm man is about equal to an honest person, and most women will not like honest people. Because they are boring. Women love lies and romance. Mom, be a jerk. With this one go, there's no need to be aggressive. Now, my physical fitness, which was often drained by alcohol and lust and nightly singing, has also tired me. If this woman wakes up tomorrow and yells at me, I'll take advantage of her weakened body after using the secret technique and send her back. Closing the doors and windows again, Liu Xi muttered to himself. Just now, Xiao Suner's movements back and forth were not insignificant, but fortunately, every time she came, she used a secret technique to seal the entire room's movements and did not spread to the surroundings. Otherwise, his place would be bustling now. New book period, seeking collections, seeking recommended tickets, seeking book reviews, various seeks. End of this chapter.